Hello, everyone. Omni-sensei here with What If Tai Lung Was Reborn in Avatar as a Firebender, Part 3. If you enjoy this content, please smash the like button. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to check out the original story linked in the description. I hope you enjoy listening to it.
The clash of elements shook the night. As the wall of water and torrent of fire collided midair, a violent hiss echoed across the frozen city. Steam erupted outward in every direction, cloaking the battlefield in a blinding white veil. From within the mist, Tai Lung broke free, a stream of flame trailing behind him as he darted around the towering water giant. He hurled fireball after fireball, each the size of a house, crashing into the Titan's liquid body. Every impact made the Colossus shudder, rippling waves coursing through its form. The giant's head turned, its eyes glowing like moons locked onto Tai Lung. With a soundless command, the waters of the city rose in fury. Dozens of massive columns of water erupted from the canals and streets, all converging on the spot where Tai Lung flew. His golden eyes narrowed as he dove sharply downward, narrowly slipping between the crushing pillars that slammed together behind him. But the Titan was relentless. The sea itself seemed to lunge after him, a wave larger than any building rushing through the city like a predator on the hunt. Tai Lung's eyes widened. It wasn't just an attack, it was as though the ocean itself sought to swallow him whole. He ducked low, weaving between icy paths and sliding rooftops, darting through the narrow streets. The wall of water followed relentlessly, smashing aside houses and bridges wherever he had just been. His jaw clenched. This wasn't right. He had not expected the Avatar would continue the assault even at the cost of the city's people. Each crash of water tore apart homes and shattered frozen walkways, places that might still shelter frightened civilians. The destruction was merciless. Tai Lung's expression hardened. He had made a mistake by descending here. He did not want to be the one to destroy homes again. He won't repeat his first life mistakes or be part of something similar. With a burst of flame, he shot back into the sky, climbing higher and higher. Lightning began to dance across his arms and shoulders, crackling wildly like an angry storm. He let it build, rotating through his chi channels, before hurling it downward in a brutal strike toward the Titan. The Titan reacted instantly. Ice surged upward, forming a mountain between itself and the oncoming lightning attack. The lightning exploded against it with a deafening crack, the sound rippling through the city like thunder from the sky. Tai Lung's smirk faded into a troubled frown. The Avatar was already the most powerful bender alive, a vessel of countless lifetimes. The ocean spirit alone was a force of nature beyond comprehension. Together, empowered by the restored moon spirit, the sheer tide of chi radiating from the Titan was unending, infinite. He could feel it, an endless pool of power. He would never match such raw might. Attrition was hopeless. His only advantage lay in his speed, his agility, and his size against the immense size of the spirit. For now, he had no choice. He would hold the Titan's attention, keeping it away from the retreating fleet, while his mind searched for some way, any way, to bring the Titan down. Tai Lung darted around the giant once more, weaving between crashing waves and hurling wave upon wave of fire in retaliation. The spectacle was impossible to ignore. The waterbenders who moments before had been bending water and hurling ice at fleeing soldiers stopped, staring in awe at the battle between the fire-bending master and the spirit Titan. Even Fire Nation soldiers, retreating in fear and defeat, would pause to look back, their faces lit by bursts of blue fire against glowing water. Over the heart of the city, the air had become a battlefield unto itself. Fire rained from the sky, water exploded upward in geysers, and steam boiled between them. Mist wrapped the streets, blanketing the fleeing masses, rising into the sky like a shroud. Yet even through the veil, one sight could not be hidden, the piercing glow of Tai Lung's blue flames as he fought the ocean itself. For long minutes, Tai Lung had been circling the spirit's colossal form, fire and lightning spilling endlessly from his fists. His chest heaved, his golden eyes narrowing with both frustration and complete focus. Every strike seemed useless. The Titan had an infinite chi and water supply. He even began to curse the spirit in his mind. You stupid spirit, if you are so powerful and mighty, why did you allow that fool to kill your friend? The thought pierced deeper than he expected the more he thought about it. For a heartbeat, his fire stuttered, then his eyes flashed with realization. That was it. The ocean spirit, with all its boundless might, had not acted until it was too late. Why? Because it couldn't fight, not on its own. It needed the Avatar. It needed a vessel to channel its power. His gaze snapped toward the glowing figure at the monster's core, Aang, suspended like a puppet. Earlier, he thought separating the boy from the Titan was pointless, as it will build itself again. But maybe it was not the case. The Titan might collapse entirely if its power is severed from its vessel. That was his only chance. Determined, Tai Lung surged closer, flames blazing. He gathered every ounce of his chi and unleashed his greatest inferno yet, a wave of fire so massive it lit the misty sky like a second sun. The Titan responded in kind, summoning a monstrous wall of water. They met in a thunderous collision, birthing another storm of blinding steam that blanketed the battlefield. This time, Tai Lung didn't hold back. He used the cover and dove headlong into the Titan's head. The liquid flesh boiled and rippled under his entry as he tore through it, channeling fire without restraint. He pressed forward, eyes locked on the outline of the boy within. He was close, too close for hesitation. The water began to freeze around him, the spirit's ice defense clamping down like ice fangs. Snarling, Tai Lung pushed his body harder than ever, muscles straining, chi burning. He broke through the freezing wall, his fingers brushing against Aang's clothes. Without pause, he released a small, controlled bolt of lightning, weak compared to his earlier strikes but enough to shock the boy's body. The Titan convulsed. The Avatar's body spasmed, and for the briefest moment the freezing ceased. Tai Lung roared, flooding the head with fire, searing a path as he grabbed Aang's limp form and burst free of the watery prison. It all happened in moments, too fast for any watching eyes to comprehend. From the mist, Tai Lung emerged, carrying the unconscious Avatar in his arms. Behind him, the great Titan shuddered violently, its glowing form collapsing in torrents. The colossal spirit dissolved into rushing water, then nothing, vanishing back into the ocean from which it had risen. Tai Lung hovered in the sky, drenched and trembling, but victorious. He exhaled, relief coursing through him. It worked. The spirit must have gone back to being nothing more than a stupid fish. He descended slowly, landing atop the tallest building in the city, a perch that overlooked every street and every horrified face turned toward him. Water Tribe warriors stood frozen, their spears shaking in their hands, their eyes wide as they realized what they were seeing, the Avatar, limp in the fire monster's hand. Tai Lung held the boy up by the back of his clothes like a captured animal, his voice booming with chi across the city. Water Tribe. The battle is over. The Avatar and your ocean spirit have fallen before me. If you insist on pursuing the Fire Nation soldiers, you shall face me instead. His words echoed, silencing even the crash of waves. The warriors quailed, none daring to move. With a final glance, Tai Lung tossed Aang onto the rooftop, leaving him unconscious but unharmed. Without waiting for a response, he pointed his arms backward and soared away, fire propelling him toward the retreating fleet. The Water Tribe stood rooted in place, not daring to chase the monster who had shattered what can be described as a water god. Yet in truth, Tai Lung's strength was nearly spent. His flight wavered, his chi was reaching its limit. Battling an infinitely powerful spirit had drained him to the marrow. But he endured and found a path. In the end, victory was his. The Fire Nation fleet had retreated a safe distance from the Northern Water Tribe, their ships cutting across dark waters under the pale moon. Despite their retreat, the mood aboard the ships was nothing like defeat. The decks rang with laughter, cheers, and the pounding of fists against armor. Morale was soaring, soldiers burning with excitement as though they had claimed victory itself. Some of the younger troops begged their captains to turn the fleet around and resume the war. Others spoke with fiery eyes, claiming they could storm the ice walls a second time and win. The reason for this boundless spirit was the same across every ship, Tai Lung. They had seen him. One of their own, standing against the godly power of the Avatar. The ocean itself had risen, the Avatar fused with it somehow, and Tai Lung had met it blow for blow. He had soared like a comet of flame and lightning, shaking the sky with his strikes. And in the end, he had emerged victorious, carrying the Avatar's limp body as the Titan collapsed. No longer was the Avatar the untouchable symbol of power. The soldiers spoke of it as fact now, Tai Lung was the most powerful bender in the world. Some men even grumbled in frustration, confused why their champion had not pressed the advantage. With such strength, what force could possibly resist him? If the legendary Avatar could not stop him, then surely the Water Tribe could be crushed with ease. But their voices were born of ignorance. None of them saw the truth. Behind the strong front, Tai Lung was shattered. The fight had drained him. By the time he returned to the flagship, he had only enough strength to order the high-ranking officers to pull back the fleet. After that, he vanished into his quarters without another word. There, away from the cheers of the soldiers, he collapsed into meditation, trying to rest and recover. Early the next morning, General Iroh entered Tai Lung's quarters. He found the great warrior sitting cross-legged on the bed, his eyes closed, breath steady in disciplined rhythm. When Tai Lung finally opened them. "What brings you here so early, General?" Tai Lung asked quietly. Iroh smiled warmly, his hands folded behind his back. "I came to check on you after last night's battle. You defeated the Avatar and the Ocean Spirit. You may very well be the strongest bender alive, perhaps even greater than the spirits." Tai Lung shook his head. The Avatar was nothing but a vessel. And the Ocean Spirit? He narrowed his eyes. It didn't know how to fight. If a beginner bender had been given its power, it would have been doomed. All of us would. The ocean is something else, its raw power is beyond me. Iroh gave a soft chuckle, though his eyes were serious. The ocean is a force of nature. In raw power, few things can match it. He paused then, his voice growing heavier, his gaze fixed on Tai Lung. "You are strong, Tai Lung. Stronger than anyone I have ever seen. If you had joined the siege, the Water Tribe would have fallen. Even Ba Sing Se will fall if you lead the charge. And yet you are well known to avoid battles and only step in for rescue. Why? You could gain so much honor and glory." For a long moment, Tai Lung said nothing. Then he looked into Iroh's eyes and replied firmly, "That is not my destiny or my path. I want the betterment of myself, I don't need to be anything more, and I don't wish to seek a great and glorious destiny. And in respect to my father's wishes, I am willing to protect the Fire Nation's people. But that is the limit of it. Conquering lands and winning wars is just not for me." Iroh studied him closely. "Then what do you want? Have you thought of bringing balance back? Of seeking peace?" Tai Lung replied, "I honestly don't know, but I know I am not worthy to be a bringer of peace or its guardian. And honestly, I don't see the war as entirely bad. Look at what it's brought us, our technology, our settlements, and our riches. This doesn't mean I support war, it is just that the world is living in a cycle, peace breeds war and war breeds peace, and me stopping it is just a temporary solution. The only thing I would be truly achieving is the betrayal of my parents and our people." Temporary. I suppose that is true. What do you think should be done to end this cycle? Iroh asked. Tai Lung gave a faint shrug. "I don't know. I'm good at training and fighting. That is all I am good for." Iroh sighed softly. He turned to leave, but after a step, he stopped. His voice lowered as he asked one final question. You didn't kill the Avatar. Why? Do you think he could bring back peace and balance? Tai Lung's lips curved into a small smile. No, I don't think he is the solution. I didn't kill him, just like I didn't kill any waterbender, because simply I have no enmity with them. I also admit I want to face him when he masters the 4 elements. He is the strongest bender after all. It would be a shame if I never had the chance to challenge him at his peak. Iroha's smile returned. Then I shall leave you to your rest. And with that, the Dragon of the West stepped out, leaving Tai Lung alone with his thoughts, his eyes drifting closed once more. In stark contrast to the roaring morale of the Fire Nation fleet, the Northern Water Tribe found no comfort in their supposed victory. Though they had driven the invaders back, what lingered in their minds was not triumph, but dread. They had seen the impossible. The Avatar, in his divine fury, had faced a Fire Nation soldier and lost. That soldier was no ordinary man. He was a monster. The warriors of the tribe knew it in their bones. If that firebender, the one with burning blue flames, had stepped into the war from the beginning, they would have been doomed. No wall of ice, no group of benders, no prayers to TAI and La could have resisted such raw might. But he had not. For reasons unknown, the monster had only joined the fray at the end, to halt the Avatar and cover the retreat of his people. His motives were a mystery. Some whispered that perhaps attacking them was beneath him. Others prayed that whatever restraint held him away from battle would continue to bind him forever. Yet none were more shaken by Tai Lung's power than Aang and his companions. Even in the Avatar state and controlled by the ocean spirit's wrath, Aang had been aware of his surroundings. He remembered every clash and every strike, and he remembered losing. The ocean itself had not been enough. Tai Lung had torn him free from that divine union and cast the spirit back into the water. Katara and Sokka had no less fear carved into them. They had attacked that monster with everything they had, and he had nearly ended their lives in an instant, only sparing them at Iroha's plea. They couldn't understand his words, his reasoning, or his strange decisions. But one truth was undeniable: Tai Lung was no ordinary enemy. He was the true monster among the Fire Nation's ranks. What unsettled them most was his words after reviving the moon spirit. He had claimed it had cost him half of his strength. If that was true, then half of Tai Lung's power had already eclipsed the Avatar joined with the ocean. How could anyone fight such a being? The three now sat in silence in their chamber, each lost in thought. The weight of the night event crushed them until Aang finally broke the stillness. Bumi was right, he whispered, his voice full of fear. Tai Lung is a monster that must be avoided. I don't know if I could ever beat him, even if I mastered all 4 elements. Neither Katara nor Sokka replied at first. The silence stretched until, at last, Sokka muttered, "That thing has inhuman strength and speed. He can fly. He can unleash seas of blue fire, summon lightning, and even bring spirits back to life. There's no way Tai Lung is a human." Katara gave a faint nod, her lips trembling. But why didn't he join the battle? He revived the moon, then fought Aang and spared him, and then he just left. Why? You heard him, Sokka answered grimly. He sees the moon as something important for the world. And he likes challenges. Maybe he wants to fight Aang only after he's mastered all 4 elements. Aang swallowed hard, his throat dry. He didn't want to believe it. The thought of facing Tai Lung in earnest made him shiver. He still saw flashes of the man in his mind. What should we do, then? Katara asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Aang lowered his head. I don't know. I think the only thing we can do is continue our journey. I have to learn the 4 elements, it's the only chance I'll ever have to bring balance back to the world. Sokka lifted his gaze, then sighed. I've been thinking. I might stay here. With you. His words hit Katara and Aang like a blow. You can't be serious. Katara snapped, her eyes wide. Are you going to abandon Aang just like that? Sokka's expression hardened. And maybe you should, too. We said we'd accompany Aang to the north, and we did. Our promise is fulfilled. He still has 2 elements to master. Katara shot back. Sokka shook his head. And what happens if we encounter Tai Lung again? Aang might not be able to save himself, let alone us. Katara fell silent at that, her chest tightening. She could still feel Tai Lung's burning grip around her throat, the cold gleam of his golden eyes. Aang looked down at his hands. Sokka's right. I don't want to put you in danger. If Tai Lung ever came after you because of me, I'd never forgive myself. Katara's anger faded into sorrow. She looked between Aang and Sokka, her voice trembling but firm. That's stupid. What if that monster comes back here? What if he attacks the Northern Water Tribe again? What if he went after you? With him around, nowhere in the world is safe. Unless you master all 4 elements, Aang will always be at his mercy. Sokka, if you want to have a chance to live peacefully with you, Aang must master the 4 elements and defeat Tai Lung. Aang raised his head. Slowly, he nodded, his eyes burning with a new determination. Sokka hesitated but nodded at last. No place is safe. The Fire Nation fleet was split and scattered after the events of the North Pole siege. While the majority of the ships turned their prows toward home, Tai Lung had other plans. He directed his ship away from the returning fleet, ordering his crew to chart a course for the Earth Kingdom. His destination was the circus. He intended to visit Tai Li. Another ship split from the fleet as well. Prince Zuko, still banished, demanded to continue his mission of hunting the Avatar. Thanks to General Iroha's enduring prestige as the Dragon of the West, the new commander of the fleet reluctantly granted Zuko his own vessel. And so, the greatest Fire Nation Armada story came to an end. It took several days for Tai Lung's ship to reach the Earth Kingdom coast. The moment his boots touched the ground, his crew began making preparations to sail back to the Fire Nation. This is a personal matter, not a military one, they told him before boarding once more. Tai Lung could only shake his head with a low chuckle at their eagerness to go back home while completely disregarding their captain. Tai Lung focused on his mission, finding Tai Li. It was not immediate. It took him days of asking around, following directions, and tracing the traveling paths of the circus. Finally, his search ended at a clearing where the colorful tents rose high against the trees. There, outside the performers' quarters, he spotted her. Tai Li was practicing in the open air, her body folding and bending in impossible arcs of flexibility. A white mask covered half of her face, obscuring her scar. "Hi, Tai Li," Tai Lung called as he approached, his deep voice breaking the rhythm of her movements. "How are you?" Tai Li froze mid-stretch, her eyes widening in surprise. The mask did little to hide the sudden light in them. With a cheerful cry, she sprang forward, wrapping her arms around him in a tight embrace. "I missed you. Why didn't you write to me that you were coming?" Tai Lung returned her hug briefly before pulling back. "I joined an operation in the north," he explained. "I didn't know when it would end. I came here as soon as I was done." As he spoke, his gaze lingered on the mask covering her face. His expression hardened. "Why are you wearing that half mask?" Tai Li's joy faltered. She lowered her head, her voice quieter when she replied. "It's better for business." Tai Lung's frown deepened. "That's dumb. Your face is good as it is. Who manages this circus? I'd like to have a word with him." For a moment she looked startled, then broke into a laugh, though it was tinged with nervousness. "I'm glad you think that way, but I'm fine like this, really. What matters is that the people I care about don't care about my face." Tai Lung's eyes narrowed, but he let it drop with a low growl of disapproval. "Fine. But remember, if you grow sick of them, let me know. I can straighten their behavior for you." Tai Li laughed at his words. The following days passed in a calm rhythm. Tai Lung lingered around the circus. He traveled with the troupe, watched their shows, trained alongside Tai Li, and accompanied her to nearby settlements and villages. When it came to sharing stories, it was mostly Tai Li who spoke, her voice full of laughter and mischief, while Tai Lung listened in his quiet way. 2 weeks later, the two were sparring on an open field. No bending, just pure hand-to-hand combat. Tai Li darted around him with her usual acrobatic grace, striking and flipping, while Tai Lung blocked her blows with ease. During the exchange, he spoke between movements. "Do you plan to stay in the circus forever?" "Yes," Tai Li answered brightly, ducking under his swing. "I think it's my calling. I get to travel around and enjoy all the scenery." "My offer to join my crew is still open," Tai Lung countered, catching her wrist and releasing it just as quickly. "We travel all the time, and to be frank, the circus could never match us. We go all over the world, and we rarely join battles." Tai Li hesitated, rolling back on her hands before springing upright again. "But, is that really fine? You're a soldier. I'm just a civilian at the end of the day." Tai Lung scoffed, his smirk dismissive. "What I say goes. Who's going to object? The Fire Lord? I'll beat him up if he dares to open his mouth about it." Tai Li laughed, covering her mouth. "Don't let anyone hear you, that's treason." "No worries," Tai Lung said with a smirk. "When I'm done with him, it won't be." Her laughter came harder this time, full of amusement. "Fine, I'll join, but let's not leave before today's show. I'd feel bad leaving the circus right before it." Tai Lung gave a satisfied nod. But before the day could end, they received an unexpected visitor. A litter carried by royal guards arrived at the circus grounds, and when the curtains parted, out stepped Princess Azula of the Fire Nation. She froze for the briefest moment when she saw Tai Li and Tai Lung standing side by side. "Azula!" Tai Li cried with delight. She charged forward and hugged the princess tightly. Azula allowed the embrace, offering a rare smile. "It's nice to see you too, Tai Li." Her golden eyes then shifted toward Tai Lung. "I didn't expect to find you here after what you did in the north. The entire nation speaks of nothing else." Tai Lung walked toward them at an unhurried pace. "I originally planned to visit Tai Li," he said casually. "But father insisted I follow Zhao, just in case." Tai Li blinked, curiosity flashing in her eyes. "Wait, what did Tai do in the north?" Azula arched a brow at him, surprised. "You didn't tell her?" Tai Lung shrugged. "She's not interested in war-related topics." "Well," Tai Li said, folding her arms, "now I'm interested. What is this about?" Azula's expression softened into one of calculation. "Let's sit somewhere first." They found a quiet spot near the circus tents, where Azula recounted the tale as it was told in the capital. How Tai Lung had fought the Avatar in his Avatar state. How the Avatar commanded the ocean itself and still lost to Tai Lung. She described the retreat of the Fire Nation fleet and how Tai Lung's intervention saved countless soldiers. Tai Lung listened in silence, noting to himself that while much of it was true, the retelling painted him as if he had emerged with strength to spare, when in reality, he had been utterly drained. The story had made him sound unstoppable, capable of crushing the North entirely along with the Avatar if he wished. Tai Li looked at him with wide-eyed amazement. Azula, however, leaned forward. "You could have captured or killed the Avatar. You could have conquered the North. But instead you retreated. The War Council is furious." "I don't want to conquer lands or win battles," Tai Lung said simply. "I only stepped in to help our soldiers escape. That's all. And I have no plans to change how I act anytime soon." Azula's sharp gaze lingered on him, unconvinced, though she didn't press further. She knew better than to antagonize this monster. Instead, she turned her attention back to Tai Li. I'm on a mission, she said. She explained that she had been sent to capture Zuko and Iroh and bring them home under the Fire Lord's orders. She needed help, and so she had come for Tai Li. Tai Li's face fell. I'm sorry, Azula. I am going to join Tai Lung's crew. Azula's brow furrowed. But you're not a soldier. I'm inviting her, Tai Lung interrupted, his tone casual but final. If someone has a problem with her, they can always find me. Azula's eye twitched at his blatant disregard for authority. He was doing whatever he pleased, and she knew no one dared oppose him, not even her father. You can always go with Tai Lung later, she said, her voice firm. This is my first mission away from home, Tai Li, and I need all the help I can get. Tai Li hesitated, torn. On one hand, she wanted to leave with Tai Lung. On the other hand, she didn't want to let Azula down. Meanwhile, Tai Lung's brow furrowed. Why do you need help to bring your brother and uncle back? Just send some letter or ask around our bases and you're done. Azula sighed, her mask of confidence cracking for a heartbeat. They're being brought back against their will to avoid bringing shame to the royal family. Tai Lung tilted his head, not understanding the thought process here. His thoughts drifted toward the Fire Lord's less-than-stellar reputation as he stared at Azula with a questioning gaze. She stiffened, able to guess exactly what he was thinking. If it weren't for the fact that he was far too strong, she might have struck him down with lightning where he stood. Ignoring Tai Lung entirely, Azula turned her focus back to the still hesitant Tai Li. I was planning to fetch Mai after you, she said smoothly. She's in the Earth Kingdom after all, and the three of us could be together again. We haven't met since we left the Royal Fire Academy for girls. Tai Li's eyes brightened instantly. Mai is here? She and her family came to the Earth Kingdom, Tai Lung answered before Azula could. Her father was put in charge of managing a district of settlements and villages or something along those lines. Azula shook her head and then corrected Tai Lung. Your information is outdated. Her father is no mere administrator anymore. He's the city lord of Omashu. Tai Lung raised a brow at that. I didn't hear of any invasion toward the city. Nor that we conquered it. Azula shrugged as though it were of no consequence. We were assembling a full invasion force at the same time as the North Pole Siege Fleet. The War Council expected a bloody battle, and instead the Mad King, Bumi, surrendered the city without a fight out of nowhere. I guess he knew the futility of resisting the inevitable. At that, Tai Lung fell quiet. He remembered the mad old king well. Bumi, despite his age, was the most skilled earthbender Tai had ever crossed paths with. His forces weren't weak either. Omashu had resisted Fire Nation pressure for over a century. For the king to simply surrender, it made no sense. What was he thinking? Azula's eyes sharpened as she returned to her true goal. So, she said, turning to Tai Li, what do you think? Will you come with me? Tai Li hesitated, her gaze flickering toward Tai Lung before returning to Azula. I'm really sorry, Azula, she said softly, but I want to travel with Tai Lung. I wish you the best of luck on your mission. Azula's hand clenched tightly at her side. She had come here fully expecting Tai Li to accept. Even if she hadn't, Azula had other ways of persuasion. But with Tai Lung standing beside Tai Li, she could do nothing. In the end, Azula forced a thin smile. It's fine, Tai Li. I understand. It was nice seeing you again. She turned on her heel, her guards falling in behind her. Why not stay the night? Tai Li called quickly. I have a performance piece tonight. Azula didn't turn back. I have a mission to finish. I've already wasted enough time coming here. And just like that, she was gone. Tai Li stood there, troubled, watching her retreating figure. She looked up at Tai Lung. Azula is my friend, and I turned her down, and she looked disappointed and sad. Do you think I made a mistake? No, not really, Tai Lung said flatly. Her mission is ridiculous to begin with. The Fire Lord, Ozai, is worried about the royal family's reputation. I don't understand where he gets the audacity and shamelessness to send her on such a mission. Tai Li chuckled at his bluntness, her worry easing slightly. After a moment, she asked, "Is it okay if we set off to Omashu tomorrow?" Tai Lung's eyes narrowed slightly. "Do you want to help Azula?" Tai Li shook her head quickly. "No. I just want to visit Mai, assuming she hasn't already left with Azula. Besides, I've never been to Omashu before. Or any major Earth city." "I have no objection," Tai Lung replied. "I haven't visited Omashu either. I heard they have some kind of unique mailing system there." Tai Li's face lit up with a smile. "Thanks, Tai." The city of Omashu lay beneath a haze of smoke and industry, its streets quiet but tense under Fire Nation control. At the heart of the city, in the chamber of the once proud city lord, and upon the high chair where authority was meant to rest, Azula sat with a poise that was both regal and suffocating. Before her, the city lord and his family, Mai's family, kowtowed, their foreheads pressed to the floor. The silence was broken only when Mai's father, with his voice trembling despite his efforts at composure, dared to look up. "I apologize," he began, his words uncertain in the presence of the princess. "You came to Omashu at a difficult time. At noon, we are arranging a trade with the resistance to retrieve Tom Tom." Azula's eyes, sharp and unblinking, turned on him with disdain. "Yes," she said, her voice clipped and dripping with mock sympathy. "I am so sorry to hear about your son. But really, what did you expect by letting all the citizens leave?" She rose, her expression as cold as steel, and her words cut sharper than any blade. "My father entrusted this city to you, and you are making a mess of things." The weight of her accusation scared Mai's father. He collapsed into a deeper bow, his voice strained as he repeated, "I apologize, princess." Azula stepped forward, passing by the groveling figures without another glance. "You will stay here," she ordered flatly. "Mai will handle the hostage situation. That way, you won't have another chance to ruin anything else." Behind her, Mai stood without protest. She followed Azula out in silence, her expression unreadable. As they walked through the corridors of Omashu's palace, Azula's voice broke the silence, low and edged with annoyance. It would be useful to have Tai Li at times like this. But she chose to stick with Tai Lung. I still cannot believe she would rather wander around with him than come here. Mai cast a sidelong glance at her. The irritation was clear in Azula's tone, but Mai's own reply was delivered in her usual, dry calm. "The two rarely see each other as it is. Tai is always traveling. And you know how insecure Tai Li is about her face." Tai was the only one who never minded the scar or reacted to it. Azula's steps faltered just slightly, her mind tugged unwillingly toward memory. The assassination attempt. Her own guard had betrayed her, and though the assassination meant for her had failed, Tai Li had not walked away unscathed. A scar now marred her friend's face. Azula had always suspected deep down that Tai Li blamed her for it. Sometimes, even Azula would have a flicker of guilt when she saw Tai Li's face. But what she could never quite grasp was how Tai Lung bore it so easily, how he seemed to look past such a disfigurement without the slightest care. It baffled her. And part of her felt jealous of Tai Li. She, the princess of the Fire Nation, had no one that genuinely cared about her like Tai Li. But Azula dismissed the thought as fast as it got into her head. There were more pressing matters. First, the hostage trade. Then, her uncle and her brother. When the sun reached its peak, the two sides met for the trade. At the tallest structure in the city, a building now crowned with scaffolding for the statue of Fire Lord Ozai, Azula and Mai stood side by side, staring ahead. Behind them hung a cage of iron, more coffin than prison, swaying from a heavy chain. Through the narrow window, the unmistakable face of King Bumi peered out, his wild grin unbothered even in captivity. On the other side, three figures walked forward, carrying with them the small, innocently laughing child Tom. The shortest of the three stepped forward, his voice firm but cautious. "We are ready to trade." Azula's smile was thin, sharp, and cruel. "I am sorry," she spoke, "but a thought just occurred to me. It hardly seems fair to trade a 2-year-old child for an old king, one of the strongest earthbenders in the world." Mai's eyes flicked to her brother. For a moment, there was a change in her expression. Then, coolly, she stepped forward and said, "You are right, princess. The deal is off." The decision was made. Azula surged forward, blue fire erupting from her hands, lashing toward the trio. The captors' faces turned to horror. The boy with the staff swung it, unleashing a sudden, powerful gust of air. The girl moved fluidly, bending every drop of water she carried, sending it forward in full force. The third, clutching Tom in desperation, hurled his boomerang into the fray. The attacks collided midair with Azula's blazing fire. For an instant, the attacks of the two sides clashed and came to a halt. Then the combined force pierced through the fire, hitting Azula and driving her back. She flipped midair, landing with grace, her narrowed eyes fixing on the trio once more. But they were gone. "They escaped," Mai murmured, her tone as flat as ever. "I know you're terrifying, but what did you do to them to make them run like that? I've never seen anyone flee so fast." Azula's expression hardened, though a flicker of confusion passed through her eyes. "I am not sure. But just now, that was airbending. The boy with the staff, he is the Avatar." Behind them, in his iron cage, King Bumi had been chuckling the entire time. Yet even his laughter faltered as his eyes widened in surprise. His old friend had run so fast, so abruptly, that even he was left stunned. He had planned to tell Aang to leave him behind. But Aang had not even attempted a rescue. For a long moment after the escape, silence lingered over the city's highest point. The cage still swayed slightly from its chain, and the unfinished statue of Fire Lord Ozai loomed above them. Then, at last, Bumi's chuckling voice broke through, his tone almost enlightened, as though he had reached some grand revelation. "Ah, I know why they escaped," the old king announced. Both Azula and Mai turned their heads toward him, curiosity flickering in their eyes despite themselves. Bumi grinned through the small window in the iron coffin. "It's the blue fire," he said cheerfully. "I believe they thought you were that terrifying firebender, Tai Lung." Azula's eyes narrowed. But Bumi wasn't finished. He gave her a look full of mock pity, his voice lowering into something almost fatherly. "They must have mistaken you for him. No offense, but you look nothing like a girl, let alone a princess. Anyone could confuse you for a boy. I suggest you take better care of yourself." For a beat, Azula and Mai both froze, blinking in disbelief at the rudeness of his words. Then Azula's face darkened, her fury barely restrained. "I will throw you deep into the prison," she hissed, her hand raised with lethal precision. "So deep that the sunlight will never see you again." At her signal, the chain above groaned and began retracting, lifting Bumi's prison upward and then into the shadows of a rocky tower nearby. His laughter echoed until it was swallowed by the dark. Mai stood silently at her side. After a pause, she finally said, her tone flat as stone, "Don't take his words seriously. He's just a senile old man." Azula turned her glare upon her companion. "I am not. As if I would accept his words. The only thing that might be true is the blue fire. The Avatar and his companions must have thought I am like Tai Lung due to the blue fire." Mai inclined her head in calm acknowledgement, her face expressionless, then asked, "Why is the Avatar afraid of Tai Lung?" Far below, in the abandoned slums of Omashu's lower levels, 3 figures leaned against walls, catching their breath. Aang, Katara, and Sokka huddled in an abandoned building, their chests rising and falling heavily from the escape. "There's a second monster among the Fire Nation ranks," Aang said at last, his voice shaken. She has blue fire. Katara's hands tightened around her water flask, her face pale. Tai Lung was already a walking disaster. What are we supposed to do now that there are two of them? How did the Fire Nation even raise monsters like them? Sokka frowned, scratching the back of his head as though working through a theory. Maybe that girl is his sister? Aang shook his head. It doesn't matter now. What matters is finding a way to save Bumi while avoiding her. That's too dangerous. Sokka cut in sharply. If we get caught by her, it'll be the end of us. Katara nodded firmly, her voice quiet but urgent. She is too dangerous, Aang. We barely got away. Next time we won't be so lucky. Aang hesitated, his eyes downcast. His fists clenched at his sides. But we can't just leave. I need an earthbending teacher and Bumi is the best choice. Sokka met his gaze with unflinching seriousness. I'm sorry, Aang. But we have to leave Omashu. We can't risk it anymore. And now, they know you're here. The word struck heavily in Aang's chest. He lowered his head, silent, the decision weighing on him like stone. Deep inside, he knew Sokka was right. Staying was impossible, not with a second Tai Lung, another blue fire monster, guarding the city. At last, shoulders slumped, Aang turned toward the darkened sewer tunnels of Omashu. Without another word, the Avatar and his companions slipped away into the dirty hole they came from. 3 days later, Tai Lung and Tai Li finally arrived at Omashu. To Tai Li's disappointment, they learned that Azula had already departed a day earlier, taking Mai with her to track not only her uncle and brother but also the Avatar. With little else to do, the pair spent a full day exploring the captured city before deciding to set off once more, wandering aimlessly across the conquered lands of the Earth Kingdom. With the fall of Omashu, only Ba Sing Se, the great walled capital, remained as the last standing city of the Earth Kingdom. Every other stronghold had fallen under Fire Nation control. Here and there, small resistance bands persisted, but none posed a true threat to the Fire Nation's growing power. Their journey stretched on for nearly 2 months. They drifted steadily northward until, at last, they arrived at a large military base near the Yanhai River. The broad river flowed west of Ba Sing Se toward the south, where they came from. What awaited them there made both Tai Lung and Tai Li stop in their tracks. Standing beside the base was a massive construct of iron, the largest machine either of them had ever seen. A monstrosity of metal loomed before them, terrible and awe-inspiring. Tai Lung and Tai Li continued toward the main gate, and as they approached, Tai Lung said, "I am Captain Tai Lung." The soldiers on guard stiffened at once. At the sound of his name, their bodies tensed, eyes widening. One among them stepped forward, voice steady but cautious. "Sir, could you please provide proof of identity?" Tai Lung raised one hand. A flicker of pale flame burst to life in his palm, blue fire. The soldier instantly bowed respectfully. "It is an honor to meet you, sir. We have all heard of your battle at the North Pole." Tai Lung allowed the flame to die before speaking, his tone measured. "What is that giant machine standing there?" The soldier straightened and followed his gaze. "That, sir, is a drill. A giant war machine designed to pierce through the walls of Ba Sing Se." Tai Lung gave a low hum. "So there is a plan to mount an attack on the city?" "Yes," the soldier confirmed. "The War Minister Cheng and Princess Azula herself will both be leading the invasion force." At once, Tai Li's eyes lit up with delight. "Oh! Azula is here? That means Mai as well. Let's go meet them." The soldiers exchanged uneasy glances. This scarred girl had spoken the princess's name so casually it almost seemed disrespectful. Their looks did not escape Tai Lung's notice. "Tai Li is my fiancé," he explained to the guards. "And a close friend of the princess." That was enough. The soldiers bowed lightly to Tai Li at once. "We apologize for not recognizing you, Lady Tai Li." Tai Li waved her hand with a cheerful little shake. It's okay, guys. I don't hold any titles, you don't need to be so formal with me. Her easygoing warmth drew smiles from the men. The leading soldier straightened and said respectfully, "Allow me to lead you to Princess Azula's quarters." And so Tai Lung and Tai Li followed, walking side by side behind their guide. Along the way, the soldier could not help but express his awe and respect toward Tai Lung, recounting the stories he had heard of the northern siege and asking questions. Tai Li listened with a smile to the soldier. A few minutes later, the soldier led Tai Lung and Tai Li to a well-kept, single-story building on the quieter side of the base. He bowed respectfully before leaving them at the door. Tai Lung pushed it open, and the two stepped into a modest living room. The space was plain, furnished only with essentials. At the far end, a corridor stretched deeper inside, leading to several rooms. "Azula? Are you here?" Tai Li called out brightly. From the corridor, Azula emerged in her sharp military uniform. For once, her mask of composure slipped, surprise flashing in her eyes. "Tai Li. What are you doing here?" Tai Li hurried forward with a smile. "We were going to mount a ship from this base and head back south, but when I found out you were here, I wanted to say hi." "Where's Mai? Is she here?" Azula gave a small nod, then turned. "Follow me." Tai Li trailed after her instantly, while Tai Lung kept 2 steps behind. Azula led them into one of the rooms branching off the corridor. The moment Tai Li entered, she froze. Mai lay on the bed, both her legs wrapped thickly in bandages. Her face was paler than usual, her expression even gloomier than the detached calm she normally wore. Tai Li gasped and rushed to her side. "What happened to you?" Mai lifted her eyes to Tai Li's but said nothing. Azula answered instead. "While we were following the Avatar's trail, Mai engaged his companions. While she was occupied, the Avatar's bison came from behind and blasted her into the rocks, breaking her legs." Tai Li's eyes widened in shock. She clasped Mai's hand tightly. "I'm so sorry that happened to you, but cheer up. I'm sure you'll recover in no time." Mai averted her gaze, offering no reply. Azula's voice cut in, with a quite restrained tone. "The healers think she might not be able to walk again." Tears welled in Tai Li's eyes. She bit her lip, her voice trembling. "I'm so sorry. I should have come with Azula. I could have helped." Finally, Mai sighed and turned her head back. "You don't know that. Maybe I'd still be crippled all the same, or you would be in my place." For a moment, silence lingered in the room. Then Tai Lung's voice came. "Tai Li," he said firmly, stepping forward. "Step away from Mai. I might be able to help her." All 3 girls looked at him in confusion, but Tai Li obeyed, sliding back. Tai Lung knelt at Mai's bedside. Without another word, he placed his hands over her bandaged legs. A faint, warm, soft golden glow spread from his palms. The light seeped into her injured legs. A full minute passed, then, just as suddenly, the glow faded. Tai Lung stood up again. "Try to move now," he instructed. Mai blinked, uncertain, but did as told. She shifted her legs, then gasped. They moved. Slowly, hesitantly, she swung them over the bed's edge. With her friends watching in silence, Mai pushed herself up and stood. Her eyes widened. She was standing. Her legs, broken just moments ago, were now fully healed. The 3 girls stared at Tai Lung in shock. Mai asked, "What did you do?" Tai Lung replied calmly, "The qi is the source of life. I gave you my qi, which improved your body and accelerated your healing." Azula narrowed her eyes. "I have never heard of such a thing." "The water tribe does something similar," Tai Lung explained, "but they use water as a medium." Azula just stared at him, speechless, and so did the other 2. Every time they thought they began to understand his power and skill set, he surprised them with something new. After some time of silence, Tai Li finally said, "That's amazing, Tai. But if you can heal, can't you heal my face?" Tai Lung shook his head. "I give my chi to help the body recover, it just accelerates the natural process of healing. Wounds heal, yes, but scars will remain behind, no matter how faint." Tai Li pressed on, her voice soft but pleading. "Can we try it at least? Please." Seeing her begging look, Tai Lung nodded and walked closer. He raised his hand, placing it gently on her scarred face. Once again, the same golden light glowed warmly, enveloping Tai Li's features. A minute later, the light faded. Tai Lung withdrew his hand. "This is the limit of how much chi can help you. I admit I didn't expect anything." Tai Li looked at Tai Lung, then at Azula and Mai. "It is not gone," Azula remarked, tilting her head, "but I guess that's an improvement." Mai silently pulled out a dagger and handed it to Tai Li. "This is the closest thing I have to a mirror." Tai Li took the dagger and peered at her reflection. The jarring scar was still there, but it was less visible than before, fainter, and softer. Even still, it was a lot better than before. She looked up at Tai Lung, who quickly said, "The scar would have faded in the same manner within a few years or so. My chi just hastened that." Tai Li hugged him tightly. Thank you. This is more than I dreamed of. You are the best." Tai Lung stood there for a moment without responding, then hugged her back lightly. "No problem." He silently noted to himself that he should have tried first before drawing conclusions. Far from the military base and near Ba Sing Se, Aang and his team sat resting before crossing the Serpent's Pass. Toph, bored out of her mind, suddenly asked, "So, you guys have been running from the Fire Princess like crazy, but I never got to ask why." "Sure, she's a tough one, but for you to be that scared of her, what did she do to terrify you so much?" Aang and the group looked at each other for a moment. Then Katara spoke, "It was the blue fire. We thought she was another monster like Tai Lung." Sokka interrupted, "I actually thought she was his sister." "Who would have thought she was the sister of the angry prince?" Toph tilted her head with interest. "Who is Tai Lung, and how strong is he to scare all of you like that?" Katara's voice grew heavy. "He is a literal monster. If he was the one hunting us, I don't think there is any chance of escaping him. Only Aang, after mastering the 4 elements, might be able to fight him." Toph grinned. "He sounds really strong. I would like to face him." Sokka shook his head. "You don't understand. The word strong doesn't even describe him. If you compare him to the princess, then it is like comparing a tiny kitten to a dragon. If the princess could throw a fireball the size of a boulder at you, that monster would throw a mountain-sized fireball. He could turn you into ashes in an instant." Toph laughed. "As if I would believe that." But as she laughed, she paused. The silence of her companion spoke on its own. Katara finally said, "Toph, I think we should start over and tell you everything we have seen in the North Pole. And before we start, this is no joke. Everything we will tell you is true." 5 days later, the drill was approaching Ba Sing Se, flanked by tens of the Fire Nation tanks on both sides. It set toward the Earth capital the next day after Mai's healing. Inside the drill's control room, the War Minister stood giving orders to the operators, while Azula, Tai Li, and Mai sat comfortably on their chairs. Tai Li had insisted on accompanying her friends this time, stating she wouldn't let her friend get hurt again. Tai Lung, despite not wanting to have anything to do with this invasion force, chose to tag along to ensure Tai Li and my safety, but instead of staying with Tai Li in the control room, he went on and took over some random engineer room, deciding to meditate there alone. The invasion succeeding or failing had nothing to do with him. In the control room, Tai Li looked at the not-so-happy Azula and said, "At least he agreed to come. If things go wrong, we can depend on him to help us retreat." Azula grumbled, "What is the point of having so much power if you don't use it? I can't understand why he refuses to fully participate in war. He is literally a one-man army." The war minister, who was hearing this, spoke confidently. "Princess, I assure you we don't need the assistance of Captain Lung. This drill has a penetration and destructive power far beyond what a firebender could possibly have, including Captain Lung. And it is fully built of metal. It is too big, heavy, and sturdy, a natural counter for the earthbender." The minister's words didn't improve Azula's mood. Tai Lung's actions irked her to no end. He did what he wanted and had no respect for the royal family. And despite all of that, no one dared to oppose him. Even putting his power aside, punishing him is still impossible, as the entire nation views him as a national hero and respects him. She broke out of her thoughts when Tai Li, who was looking through the spyglasses of the drill, said, "A group of muscly earthbenders are coming our way." The war minister spoke, "As I said, the drill is earthbender-proof. Nothing to worry about." Azula looked at the minister and said coldly, "Can you take responsibility if anything goes wrong based on your words?" The minister hesitated to answer. Azula smirked. "I thought as much. Tai Li, go get rid of the enemies." Both girls stood, smiling. Mai wanted to let some steam off after her injury, while Tai Li wanted to try fighting. It had been a long while since she fought anyone beside Tai Lung. A few minutes later the two girls returned. Mai's expression was as flat as ever, but there was an edge of annoyance in her tone. "Tai Li didn't leave anyone for me," she said. Tai Li gave an apologetic little smile. "I'm sorry, but I am used to sparring with Tai. I forgot how to fight normal people," she explained sheepishly. Mai sighed. While the drill crept ever closer to the outer walls of Ba Sing Se, far above, preparations were already being made to stop it. General Sung, one of the Council of Five, the highest-ranking generals in the Earth Kingdom, stood in command. Around him clustered several soldiers, grim and tense, and beside them the Avatar and his companions. A weary soldier had just stumbled back from the field, still white-faced with terror as he reported to them. His words poured out like a flood. He described with horror how the elite team, Terra, handpicked and feared for their skill, had been utterly dismantled by a strange girl. She bore a scar on her face, he said, and moved with an inhuman speed and skill, crushing their ranks one by one. With his voice shaking, he told them how her fists seemed to drain the very strength from their bodies. Soldiers were left gasping, bending abilities snuffed out like candles, and others were left rigid, paralyzed, and unable to move even a finger. General Sung's face darkened with disbelief. "Where did the Fire Nation get someone like that?" he demanded, his voice rising. "What in the name of the spirits did she do to my elite soldiers?" Sokka's eyes darted uneasily from the shaken soldier to the rest of his group. "How come the Fire Nation has so many scary girls?" he burst out. "First the princess with fire like Tai Lung, then there's that gloomy one with endless hidden weapons, and now a girl who can take away bending and paralyze people." No one answered him. They only stared, though each of them wore the same troubled expression. The truth was bitter. When their journey had begun, their thoughts had fixed firmly on the Fire Lord as their ultimate adversary. Yet now it was clear. The most difficult part might not be defeating him at all, but facing the freak who served beneath him. General Sung turned to look at Aang and said, "Young Avatar, you are our only hope, please help us stop that metal monstrosity." Aang nodded with a serious face, then turned to look at his friends as his face turned to that of doubt. "How do we stop that thing?" Aang asked. Azula, Mai, and Tai Li sat in the control room. After the first wave of earthbenders, no more soldiers came their way. Mai sighed from her chair, her voice carrying her usual boredom. "This is boring." Tai Li kept looking through the spyglass and said, "The soldiers all left, they all climbed the wall. Maybe they gave up." Azula narrowed her eyes. "They gave up too quickly. They might be planning something." "Keep watching, Tai Li," and let me know if you see anyone coming toward us." Tai Li answered with a happy tone. "Sure." The war minister spoke confidently. "You have nothing to worry about, princess. Those soldiers must have realized the futility of their attempt to stop our great drill." Azula didn't reply. She sat there doubtful. She didn't believe the Ba Sing Se defenders would just give up like that, not with their city's fate on the line. But despite her doubt, for the next few minutes as they approached the wall, nothing happened. It was not until they made contact with the wall and the drill began digging through it that rocks started falling upon them. Even then, the attacks were too pitiful. With each passing moment, the war minister grew more confident in their success. But when the drill was more than halfway through, the reports began coming in. The first mentioned the ambush of an engineer and the loss of the schematics. The next reported that one of the giant metal support beams had been cut clean through. It was clear that it was an act of sabotage. The minister looked both shocked and horrified, while Azula stood up quickly. "That's what they were planning. Ladies, with me." Both Tai Li and Mai followed Azula outside of the control room. Tai Li asked, "Where do we start the search?" "The outer layer, of course," Azula replied sharply. "The infiltrators are attacking the support beams to weaken the drill, maybe hoping the raining rocks will cause the body to fail under its own weight if the beams are damaged enough." Azula accelerated her pace, her eyes glinting with focus. "We must hurry. We don't know how many individuals we are dealing with or the extent of the damage they have caused." Mai and Tai Li picked up their speed as well, keeping close behind Azula. The trio quickly arrived at the outer layer of the drill and began moving from one location to another, searching for the intruders. Eventually, they heard voices coming from behind the beams ahead. Azula narrowed her eyes, then surged forward faster than before. She dashed down to the lower level and there, she saw them. The Avatar and his two Water Tribe friends were cutting into one of the beams. The Avatar and the Water Tribe girl were passing water back and forth, chipping slowly at the massive support. Without a word, Azula thrust her fist forward, launching a blazing fireball toward them. The Water Tribe boy, who had been cheering the girl and the Avatar on, suddenly screamed, "Be careful." His warning gave the Avatar just enough time to dodge the attack. The three immediately turned and ran, while Azula, Mai, and Tai Li charged after them. The Avatar team bolted into the inner layer of the drill, the narrow corridors echoing with their hurried footsteps. At the end of one corridor, the group split, Aang darted one way while the Water Tribe siblings fled in another. "The Avatar is mine. You follow the other two," Azula ordered sharply as she kept running. The trio split, and the moment they did, Tai Li glanced at Mai and said, "I'll go catch them." Then she accelerated, her speed surging to a level far greater than before. Mai blinked, unable to even attempt to keep pace. There was no way she could catch up to that. Tai Lung's training did wonders to Tai Li. Mai thought as she continued at her own pace. Katara and Sokka stumbled into a pipe full of mud and rocks, Sokka pointing quickly. "This must be water mixed with rocks from the wall. Then it must be leading outside," Katara said, her face lighting with hope. But before she could say anything more, Tai Li appeared behind them like a shadow. Before either sibling could react, she unleashed a barrage of precise strikes. Both Katara and Sokka collapsed onto the floor, their bodies paralyzed. Tai Li stood over them, hands on her hips, and said brightly, "Your escape ends here." Seconds later, Mai arrived. Her usual monotone voice carried no excitement as she noted, "You caught them. Yahoo!" Tai Li smiled wide. "Of course. I won't let the ones who hurt you escape." For once, Mai's expression softened, a small smile tugging at her lips. The Avatar on his own was much faster, his airbending carrying him across the drill's surface with incredible speed. Even so, Azula pursued without hesitation, her cold determination driving her forward. When she finally burst onto the top of the drill, she spotted him in the distance near the city wall, his back turned as he worked at something feverishly at the drill's outer shell. Azula's eyes narrowed. She charged. The Avatar's small pet screeched sharply, warning him of her approach. In the same instant, Azula unleashed a barrage of fire, punching forward again and again, blue flame streaking across the drill's surface. Aang spun and quickly bent the broken rock scattered across the drill, raising a makeshift wall. Her flames smashed against the stone again and again, searing heat flaring but failing to break through. The Avatar retaliated at once, rocks rose in the air and hurtled toward her. Azula twisted and weaved, dodging and kicking others aside, all while firing back with her relentless flames. Their duel came to an abrupt halt as the sky above them seemed to darken. Enormous chunks of rock rained down from the top of the wall, forcing both combatants to break off and dodge for their lives. The deadly falling rocks left no room for attacks, only dodging for survival. When the rain of rocks finally ended, the two faced each other once again. Both dropped into stance, ready for the second round, when suddenly the entire drill shuddered violently beneath their feet. The drill's outer shell expanded outward with brutal force, splitting the ancient wall. Ba Sing Se's outer wall cracked and then broke apart. The Avatar froze, staring wide-eyed through the new opening. He could see the sprawling city beyond. His voice dropped in dread, "Oh no." Azula's laughter rang sharp and triumphant. "It's too late now, we have succeeded." But Aang's face hardened, determination igniting within him. He lunged back into the fight, this time attacking with every element at his disposal. Air whirled around him, water surged from the flask he carried, and stone leapt from the drill surface. The onslaught came swift and fierce, and for the first time, Azula began to falter beneath the Avatar's storm. Yet the drill didn't stop. It pressed deeper, grinding through the city wall. By the time half its bulk had forced through, the massive machine came to a halt and then unleashed chaos. Its belly opened, and hundreds of Fire Nation soldiers poured out into Ba Sing Se, attacking civilians and soldiers alike. Through the enormous breach, the flanking tanks thundered in, joining the invasion. Aang's eyes widened. He turned away from Azula, desperate to protect the innocent people now under attack. Azula's gaze sharpened. She raised her hand, her fingers curling as sparks of blue danced at the tips of her fingers. The Avatar heard the crackle and noticed the flash of blue behind him. He spun around just in time to see Azula release the bolt. It lunged toward him, aimed to kill. With a desperate twist, he dove aside, the lightning seared past him, missing by a hair's breadth. Azula clicked her tongue, annoyed by her failure, her golden eyes narrowing at her prey. The Avatar rose again, eyes locked on her, when a familiar voice called out from behind Azula. "Azula!" Both turned. Mai and Tai Li had arrived with a squad of Fire Nation soldiers. Bound between them, struggling helplessly, were Katara and Sokka. Aang's face collapsed into horror. Azula, however, smiled cruelly, satisfaction dripping from every word as she gestured to the captives. "Look at what my friends brought with them. What a pleasant surprise, don't you think, Avatar?" The Avatar clenched his fists and screamed, "Release them, your fight is with me." Azula laughed. "No, this is a war, not a duel. Surrender yourself or your dear friends die." The Water Tribe girl, Katara, said, "Don't listen to them, Aang. Run and defend the city." One of the soldiers holding Katara pulled her roughly and slapped her while saying, "Silence." Katara screamed in pain while Sokka screamed, "Bastard. Don't touch her." A strong wind blasted, catching the attention of everyone. The Avatar's eyes and tattoo were glowing. Inside the drill, Tai Lung sat with his eyes closed, lost in meditation, ignoring the chaos and machinery rumbling around him. The silence he kept within himself lasted until the entire drill shook violently. His eyes snapped open, and slowly, he rose to his feet. "It seems the drill penetrated the city wall," he muttered. He began moving, his steps calm and steady toward the control room. Halfway there, he stopped abruptly. His senses sharpened, his chest rising as he felt it, an overwhelming storm of chi raging outside the drill. His eyes narrowed. He remembered that chi, it was the same one the Avatar had released right before merging with the ocean spirit. Though it was stronger now, it still paled compared to the might of the ocean spirit. Without wasting another breath, Tai Lung's pace shifted from stillness to a blur. He dashed forward with full speed, determined to see for himself what was happening outside. To save time, he let fire gather in his palms and unleashed bursts of flame against the drill's metal walls. Molten holes spread in his wake, letting him pass through barriers with ease. From start to finish, less than a minute passed before he emerged on the surface. The sight that greeted him was unexpected. The Avatar floated in the air, eyes and tattoos glowing, and it had a sinister look to it. Behind him, the city of Ba Sing Se loomed. The entire section of the wall where the drill had been digging was obliterated, reduced to massive stone fragments now circling the Avatar like obedient titans. Ahead, enormous boulders lay atop the drill's shattered front, crushing it completely. From its front, mud poured out in thick streams, proof of the damage wrought by those massive rocks. Fire Nation soldiers scattered like ants, fleeing in terror. Tai Lung's eyes swept the chaos, and at the left side of the drill, he caught sight of the water tribe being carried away using earth bending by a short individual dressed in green toward the nearby building. The Avatar's gaze shifted then, his glowing eyes fixed on the right side of the drill, down on the ground. Tai Lung followed his line of focus and saw Tai Li and the others running frantically, their forms splattered with mud as they struggled to escape. The Avatar raised his arms and then waved them forward. A dozen enormous rocks shot toward Tai Li and the others like missiles of death. Without hesitation, Tai Lung's chi surged, lightning crackling around his body. He stabbed his fingers forward, unleashing a storm of lightning bolts that streaked across the air, colliding with the flying rocks and shattering them to dust before they could hit their target. Every eye turned toward him. The Avatar's glowing gaze locked on him. The citizens of the city, the Earth Kingdom soldiers, and even the Fire Nation troops halted to watch. All of them bore witness as Tai Lung stood firm. Tai Lung's eyes remained on Tai Li and her group. His voice cut across the battlefield, loud and commanding. "Retreat now." The words snapped them into motion. Tai Li and the others ran as fast as their legs could carry them, though Tai Li herself risked a final glance at him. She saw him standing tall, lightning still dancing across his arms as he faced the enraged Avatar. Mai's voice came quietly at her side. "He will be fine. He's defeated the Avatar before." Tai Li's lips pressed together, and she gave a small nod, saying nothing more as they disappeared into the city. When Tai Lung tagged along, he didn't expect to meet the Avatar here. In truth, the thought of the boy hadn't even crossed his mind. Yet here he was, standing before the master of the four elements. But regardless of the circumstances, Tai Lung was never one to hesitate when faced with a challenger. He lowered into a stance, a smile curving across his lips as his eyes locked on the glowing figure. The Avatar responded with a sudden flurry of movements, arms sweeping and circling wildly. At first, Tai Lung felt nothing. Then the air shifted. Powerful wind surged, sweeping across the battlefield until it seemed a tornado had sprung to life all around them. Tai Lung moved without pause. Lightning crackled across his body before bursting forth in a bolt aimed directly at the Avatar. But a massive boulder intercepted the strike, splitting the light with a deafening crack. At the same time, the ground beneath the boy's feet trembled and split. Chunks of rock rose into the air, circling the Avatar until they formed a spinning barricade of earth, a storm of destruction spiraling around him. Narrowing his eyes, Tai Lung studied the Avatar's movements, the rhythm of the floating rocks. The longer he watched, the clearer the pattern became. The moment recognition struck, he acted. From his fist, he unleashed a surging wave of blue flame spilling outward like a raging sea, crashing toward the Avatar. The avatar halted the spin of several boulders and slammed them together into a shield. The fire roared against the stone, the flame waves scattering across the storm. But Tai Lung didn't wait for the flames to fade. He ignited bursts from his feet and hands, launching himself through the air, his body arcing toward the nearest floating rock. He landed and then leapt again, using short, explosive jets of fire to cover the distance. From one rock to the next, climbing higher and faster, he kept his approach hidden behind the whirlwind of stone. By the time he reached the avatar's side, the boy had shifted the rocks, searching for any sign of him. When the avatar realized Tai Lung was nowhere to be seen, his glowing eyes darted left, then right. But it was already too late. Tai Lung lunged from behind, springing off a massive rock with perfect timing. The avatar turned at the last instant, sensing the movement, but he was too slow. Tai Lung was already upon him, fists flashing in a relentless barrage. Each strike found its target accurately, hammering into pressure points and chi paths. The avatar gasped, his power collapsing inward as the flow of energy was cut. His body stiffened, paralyzed. In an instant, the light faded from his eyes and tattoos. The avatar state vanished, and he began to plummet helplessly toward the ground. Tai Lung hovered above only for a moment, then descended after him. He caught the boy by the neck before he could hit the earth. Tai Lung landed heavily, his boots slamming into the dirt with a thud, before tossing the avatar aside like discarded weight. The boy scrambled weakly to look up at him, fear etched across his features. From beginning to end, the battle had lasted mere seconds, and yet the avatar, in his most powerful state, had been crushed. Tai Lung's gaze bore down on him. His voice was calm, almost curious. "Did you master water and earth?" Aang said nothing, only staring, wide-eyed and shaking. Tai Lung's expression hardened, his tone lowering. "I don't like to repeat myself." Aang swallowed hard, his throat dry. "I mastered water, and I am learning earth bending now." "Not bad, that's faster than I expected." Tai Lung nodded with slight approval before his eyes narrowing dangerously. "Tai Li, the girl with the scarred face, is my fiancée, and the gloomy girl with hidden weapons, is my friend. If I see or hear you are trying to hurt them again, I will rip your limbs, roast them, and then feed them to you." Aang paled with terror. Tai Lung, satisfied by the reaction he got, said nothing further. He simply turned, his steps slow and deliberate, and began walking away from the shattered wall of Ba Sing Se. After making a few meters distance from the avatar, Tai Lung took flight, heading back toward his people in the distance. Despite his lone and unhurried figure, no one moved to stop him. None dared. They had just witnessed the avatar unleash his fury, nearly tearing the battlefield apart, only for one man to appear and defeat him with ease, in seconds. Not long after his retreat, Toph rushed toward Aang and spoke urgently. "Twinkle Toes. Are you okay?" Aang replied weakly, "Tai Lung did something to me. I can't move my body at all." "That's the same thing the strange girl did to Katara and Sokka," Toph said. Remembering his friends, Aang asked, "How are they? Are they okay?" "They're fine. But just like you, they can't move," Toph answered. She tried to sound like her usual self, but deep down, she was scared. She might not have been able to see what had happened, but she had felt the earth shaking, massive chunks of wall and ground breaking apart, flying into the air without returning. The scale of earthbending was beyond anything she had ever imagined, and she knew only Aang in the avatar state could achieve something like that. Yet Aang had been defeated in seconds by a single person. From what she sensed, the enemy had been completely at ease at the end. His heartbeat and breathing were completely normal. Tai Lung was indeed a monster, just like the other's story made him out to be. It didn't take long for Tai Lung to catch up with the retreating army. His battle with the Avatar had ended too quickly for Tai Li and the others to gain much distance. Once reaching them, he descended directly in front of them, blocking their path. Everyone froze in place for a moment until Tai Li broke into a run and leapt into his arms, hugging him tightly. Tai. You're okay. Tai Lung smiled faintly. Now you're insulting me. Did you really think the undertrained avatar could defeat me? Tai Li blinked at him, then shook her head quickly. Of course not. It's just, the avatar was so scary back there. Tai continued to smile as he said. Actually, he was much stronger at the North Pole, thanks to the ocean spirit. Azula had heard enough. She cut straight to the point and asked the important questions. What is the state of the avatar? Did you kill him? I only paralyzed him, Tai Lung answered casually. Azula's brow furrowed, but before she could object, the war minister, panting from the retreat, spoke up. Captain Lung, how could you leave the enemy of the Fire Nation like that? Tai Lung turned his gaze on him. If you don't like how I do things, feel free to go back there yourself. Capture him. Kill him. I won't stop you or interfere in your business. The minister's fists clenched in frustration. You are our nation's most powerful bender. It is your duty to aid the Fire Nation. Tai Lung's eyes narrowed, his tone sharpened. I ensure that our people are not slaughtered because of the incompetence of the fools at the helm. The minister froze, paling as Tai Lung continued. You stand here breathing only because I came to your aid. Instead of annoying me, you should begin to think of a way to appease your dear Fire Lord. He won't care for excuses about failure, regardless of circumstance. The minister said nothing, his face drained of color. Azula broke the tense silence. While I'm sure no one will dare pursue us, I think we should retreat and regroup. The rest can wait. She didn't like the way Tai Lung spoke when mentioning her father or the way he carried himself, but she couldn't deny the truth. They weren't dead or being hunted down only because he had been there. Under Azula's command, the defeated soldiers withdrew to the rocky hills opposite Ba Sing Se. There they made camp to rest and observe Ba Sing Se. From their vantage point, spyglasses revealed the tireless effort of the Earth Kingdom defenders, rows of earthbenders working hard to rebuild the broken wall even in darkness, stone after stone rising under the glow of torchlight. Azula's gaze lingered on them. Part of her felt a strange pang of pity. They should have been inside that city now, savoring victory, if not for the Avatar's sudden entry into the Avatar state. Her thoughts soured as she recalled Tai Lung's refusal to fight for conquest. The Earth Kingdom had the Avatar, the mighty master of the four elements. And the Fire Nation had their own monster, one who could easily tear down Ba Sing Se by himself, and yet he chose to abstain. Her golden eyes shifted to where he sat, cross-legged by the fire. Tai Lung was silent, his eyes closed in meditation, while Tai Li and Mai spoke quietly nearby. With an irritated sigh, Azula strode toward them and called out, Tai Lung, for someone obsessed with training, it's strange you've been meditating so much lately. First in the drill, and now here. Without opening his eyes, Tai Lung answered, his voice steady. Meditation is also a form of training. And recently, I've been pondering something I cannot find an answer to. That caught their attention. Tai Li leaned forward with interest. What is it? Tai Lung opened his eyes. The Avatar. He reincarnates endlessly and can master all four elements. The rest of us are limited to one from birth. Some, his gaze moved to Tai Li, cannot bend at all. But why is that? The three girls were taken aback. Tai Lung pressed on. How does the Avatar do it? He's human, like us, but something sets him apart. The first Avatar must have done something no one else has. And when he enters that so-called Avatar state, his chi grows exponentially, surging as though he becomes someone else entirely. His focus settled on Tai Li. I've been pondering this since the North Pole. If I can discover what the first reincarnation achieved, I might be able to replicate it. At the very least, perhaps I could bend a second element. Or unlock bending for those who have none, like you, Tai Li. Silence followed. The three of them stared at him as though he had grown another head. At last, Tai Li's face lit up. That would be amazing. You'd be like a second avatar. Azula's thoughts, however, took a darker turn. What would the world become if the Fire Nation could create avatars at will? Mai's monotone broke the quiet. I don't think you should be thinking like that. No offense, but you're already terrifying. Some don't think you are a human. The idea of you in some kind of avatar state? I'd rather not imagine it. Tai Lung chuckled lightly. It's been months, and I'm no closer to the answer. Still, I suspect it has something to do with the spirits, like the moon and ocean spirits. Perhaps beings like them shape the world as we know it. What he did not share aloud was the rest of his thoughts. He wondered if there was a way into the spirit world and how it might differ from the spirit realm he had known in his past life. Was there a connection between the two? The question burned quietly within him. He wanted answers. The next morning, Azula gave the order to the soldiers for a full retreat. But within her sharp mind there lingered an image that refused to fade. The Avatar, in his fury, unleashed his true power of legends. It was the first time she had seen the true might of the Avatar state, and now she fully understood why the Fire Nation considered the Avatar their greatest enemy. When he entered that state, he was no longer just a bender, he became a force of nature, unstoppable, untouchable. And for now, there was no one who could stop him, no one except Tai Lung. In Azula's eyes, the only viable path forward was to strike quickly, to eliminate the Avatar while he was in his normal state. But there lay the problem, none of them understood exactly how the Avatar state worked. What triggered it? How long could he sustain it? And with the boy hidden away inside Ba Sing Se, there would be no chance to corner him in a vulnerable moment. That same thought led her to another bitter truth. As long as the Avatar remained inside the city, they could not hope to invade it. The risk was too great. Another outbreak of the Avatar state would mean disaster, a swift and costly defeat. And yet, ironically, the Earth Kingdom faced the same dilemma. Azula knew they would never dare to attack her camp. Not with Tai Lung sitting among her ranks. They understood as well as she did that any move against them might provoke him. Not only will their soldiers be at risk, but it could also cause Tai Lung to turn his fury on Ba Sing Se. The city could fall if he leads the attack. For the first time, Azula saw the war in a different light. Both sides had their pride and power, both brimming with soldiers and resources, yet both were paralyzed. The war was not dictated by armies or strategy but by the existence of two individuals. An avatar on one side. A monster in human skin on the other. Everything else had become irrelevant. Even as their forces marched away, the thought gnawed at her. How could they truly defeat the Avatar? How could they win this war? No matter how many scenarios she conjured in her mind, no matter how many clever strategies she tried to weave, the conclusion was always the same. The moment the Avatar entered the Avatar state, it was their loss. She remembered some reports mentioning how the resistance declined after the return of the Avatar. Part of her thought it was ridiculous if the so-called resistance stopped and hoped the Avatar will defeat the Fire Nation. Now, it all made sense to her. Azula's gaze shifted to Tai Lung, Tai Li, and Mai. The trio were conversing amongst themselves, though Tai Li was doing most of the talking. Azula's mind drifted back to the days when they had all trained together at Tai Lung's home. She had stopped going there to train under her father instead. A choice that, in retrospect, had been a mistake. Had she continued to try mimicking Tai Lung, perhaps she could have defeated the Avatar as he had, or at least possessed the strength to put up a real fight instead of suffering a disgraceful retreat. The Fire Nation army pulled back to the Yanhai River base. The retreat had been orderly, but the taste of failure lingered among the army. With the invasion over and no plans for what is going to be the next step, Tai Lung and Tai Li decided to return to the Fire Islands. Azula and Mai, however, remained behind. Azula refused to face her father so soon after such a defeat. She ordered the war minister to go ahead in her place, taking the blame before Fire Lord Ozai's throne. She knew well that her father did not care for reasons. In his eyes, failure was failure, and explanations only wasted his time. Better the minister receive the first wave of his wrath while she handled the army's logistics. The Yanhai River wound across the heart of the Earth Kingdom, connecting to the Zhuang-Tai Sea, which in turn reached the Great Ocean. Tai Lung and Tai Li boarded a vessel there. Their ship set a steady course back toward the Fire Islands. The journey home stretched across 2 weeks, long days of water and sky until at last the familiar outline of their homeland rose in the distance. Upon arrival, the two parted ways. Tai Lung went directly to his family home, while Tai Li returned to her parents' estate, eager to reunite with her mother, father, and sisters after so long an absence. At the Lung estate, Tai was welcomed warmly by his parents. Relief filled their faces as they embraced him, glad beyond words to see their son return completely safe and unharmed after the news they received from the North Pole. That evening, as the sun set over the Fire Nation's shores, Tai Lung shared his story with them. He spoke briefly of the North Pole, of meeting Tai Li, and of traveling alongside Azula to Ba Sing Se. His parents listened with a mixture of awe and pride. They had already heard the news of the events in the north, of the Avatar and the great battle, but to hear it from their son's own mouth along with his part in facing the Avatar again in Ba Sing Se filled them with a pride too great to hide. Their son was now recognized by everyone as the strongest bender in the world. Yet Tai Lung's eyes lingered not on his mother's delight but on his father's expression. Finally, he asked, his voice quiet, "Are you not disappointed that I didn't attempt to conquer the North Pole or Ba Sing Se? That instead, I chose to leave?" Shulian was taken aback, blinking at the question. Then he smiled slowly. Disappointed? No. You have your own path, Tai. Your own destiny. You may refuse to join the war effort fully or lead attacks on the other two nations, but you still stood to protect our people when the time came. Many will argue with your choices, but none can deny the honor with which you carry yourself. His smile widened as he added, regardless of what others say, regardless of what the world thinks, you are my son, and I will always be proud of you. Tai Lung returned the smile and bowed deeply to his father, a gesture of respect. No one can understand how much these words meant to Tai Lung. That only made his mother laugh lightly. You shouldn't bow to your father, she said. You are his son. It is only natural for him, for us, to support you. Tai raised his head again. I am grateful you are my parents. Shulian chuckled, shaking his head. I didn't know you had a taste for this sort of drama. If a bystander saw us now, they'd think you were adopted. His mother chuckled again and leaned forward, her eyes glinting. Let's move on to the more important matter. Why didn't you bring Tai Li with you? I was looking forward to seeing my daughter-in-law. While Tai Lung returned to his family in the Fire Nation, Aang and his companions were caught in the tangled webs of Ba Sing Se, facing the corruption and manipulation that plagued the city. Long Feng's hidden hand controlled the city in silence, keeping even the Earth King blind to the war that ravaged the world beyond his palace walls. It took every effort the group had, but at last they managed to reach the oblivious king. They revealed to him the truth, that the Fire Nation was advancing, that his people were suffering, and that his great kingdom was not doing as well as he had been led to believe. The king, skeptical at first, was reluctant to believe their words. But with determination, they urged him from the safety of his palace. Out in the city, the truth became impossible to deny. From the shattered streets to the scar carved into the outer wall, the king finally saw the massive drill that still loomed as evidence of the Fire Nation's assault. His disbelief fell away, replaced by shock and outrage. For the first time, he learned the truth, a war ravaged his kingdom, one that had lasted for 100 years. In his rage, the Earth King ordered the imprisonment of Long Feng and vowed to stand beside the Avatar. He promised to aid Aang with all his power to defend the Earth Kingdom and restore peace and balance. With the support of the Earth King secured, Aang turned his attention to a different matter that now weighed heavily on his mind, the Avatar state. That matter had begun with Appa. When his loyal friend had been kidnapped and lost, fate had led the bison to Guru Puthik, a wise hermit who had once been a friend to monk Yatso. Puthik not only cared for Appa but also left a message for Aang, offering to teach him how to control the Avatar state. With renewed hope, Aang mounted Appa's back, and together they soared toward the Eastern Air Temple. There, among the ruins and the quiet winds, Aang met Guru Puthik, who introduced himself as a spiritual brother of the air nomads. Puthik spoke of the chakras, of the flow of energy within, and guided Aang step by step to unlock them. With patience and trust, Aang made progress, opening one chakra after another. But when he reached the last, he faltered. His earthly attachment, Katara, was something he could not sever. To let her go, even for balance, was unacceptable. Puthik's tone grew solemn. You are the Avatar, and the Avatar state is your greatest asset to bring balance to the world, he urged. There must be another way, Aang argued, his voice trembling but firm. Puthik hesitated. In that hesitation, Aang noticed something, a shadow in the Guru's eyes. So there is another way, Aang pressed. Puthik nodded reluctantly. Not long ago, I helped someone unlock his chakras. Like you, he refused to let go of his earthly attachments. And yet, he forced open the final chakra through pure will and sheer strength alone. It was a miracle he survived. But his path is dangerous, and it is not one I can recommend. Aang's heart leapt. Who is this person? If he managed it, maybe I can too. I just need to know how he did it. There was silence for a long moment. At last, Puthik said, his name is Tai Lung, from the Fire Nation. Aang went pale at the sound of the name. Puthik's gaze sharpened. So you have already met him? Weakly, Aang nodded. I faced him once, when the ocean spirit merged with me at the North Pole, and again at Ba Sing Se, when I entered the Avatar state. He defeated me both times. Puthik let out a heavy sigh. I am not surprised. When Tai Lung first came to me, his chakras were already half open. In all my years, I had never seen such a thing. Yet beneath his calmness, I felt something terrible, a rage buried deep. The Guru's voice darkened. I helped him release that rage and open his chakras. But when he came to the last, I realized for the first time in my life that I may have made a grave mistake. At that moment, I saw the truth, I had aided a beast in human skin. He is a threat to the balance of the universe as we know it. His eyes fixed firmly on Aang, and his tone carried the weight of warning. Aang, if you want to have a chance to defeat Tai Lung and restore balance, you must master all 4 elements. And more than that, you must master the Avatar state. Only then will you have even a hope of stopping him. Aang's encounters with Tai Lung flashed within his mind, the fear he felt battled fiercely with his selfishness. In the end, Aang closed his eyes, he was going to let go of his earthly attachments. Days later, when Aang finally returned to Ba Sing Se, his friends noticed at once that something about him had changed. He carried himself differently, calmer and more focused than before. When they pressed him, Aang explained about the Guru's teachings, about opening his chakras and finally mastering the Avatar state. But what caught them most off guard was his mention of Tai Lung. Guru Puthik said Tai Lung has unlocked his chakras as well, Aang admitted quietly. He told me I must master all 4 elements along with the Avatar state to defeat him. His friends exchanged uneasy looks. The news of Tai Lung seeking out the same spiritual guidance was unexpected, though none doubted it after what they had already seen. Still, they accepted the Guru's wisdom. If there was anyone who could understand the scale of the danger, it was the person who had the capability to teach the Avatar state and Tai Lung. And so, the Avatar resumed his earthbending training with a renewed vigor, his mind more determined than ever. Around them, the Earth Kingdom threw its weight into preparations for the Day of Black Sun, their long-awaited counterstrike against the Fire Nation. Meanwhile, in the Fire Nation, Azula lingered for a while in the Earth Kingdom after her humiliating retreat. More than a month passed before she finally resolved to return home, hoping that her father's temper had cooled in the time since. Mai spoke of going her own way, back to Omashu, but Azula insisted she accompany her. "We may be sent on another mission," she said coolly, and Mai resigned to her fate as Azula's friend and follower. The journey home stretched over weeks. When at last they reached the Fire Islands, Mai declared her intent to visit Tai Li at once. Azula, however, steeled herself for the inevitable. Alone, she strode toward the royal palace, her steps full of the confidence and grace that masked the quiet storm of worry in her chest. Inside the Fire Lord's chamber, the familiar curtain of fire separated her from her father. She walked forward, knelt, and pressed her forehead low in respect. "My dear daughter is finally back," Ozai's voice rumbled from behind the flames. "For a moment, I thought you would not show your face after your disgraceful failure." The word struck like a blade, tightening her chest, but Azula allowed no hint of it to touch her face. Her head lowered slightly, she replied in an even voice, "I have no excuses, Fire Lord." "What I find more disappointing than the drill's failure," Ozai continued coldly, "is that you ordered a full retreat. You did not even consider other plans, like putting Ba Sing Se under a siege." Azula drew in a deep, steadying breath. "With the Avatar in the city, any attack or siege we mount will bleed us. As long as the Avatar can enter the Avatar state, we are destined to fail." For a long moment, silence filled the chamber. Then Ozai spoke again, his tone low but laced with contempt. "I expected more from you. How different are you from your brother? Expect punishment for your failure. Now get out." The comparison hit harder than any wound. Azula's body trembled faintly as she clenched her fist, bowing deeply before turning away. For the briefest instant, she wanted to whirl back, to spit the words that burned in her chest, that if Ozai were so great, he could fight the Avatar himself, or better yet, reclaim his so-called honor from Tai Lung. But the words stuck in her throat. She swallowed them, straightened her back, and left in silence. It wasn't long after that Azula heard of her punishment. She was to stay in her room and not be allowed to interact with anyone until the Fire Lord decided otherwise. Ozai chose a simple punishment, at least in his eyes, since Azula, despite her failure, could still be used in the future. It wasn't immediate, but a few days later the news of Azula's punishment reached the ears of Admiral Lung, and in turn, Tai Lung and Tai Li. Tai Lung didn't care much about the royal family drama, while Tai Li felt anger for her friend. When Tai Li and Mai heard the news one afternoon from Tai Lung while training in the Lung estate, Tai Li spoke in anger, "That's not fair, to punish Azula for not being able to defeat the Avatar. Why doesn't the Fire Lord set an example and go do the job himself?" Mai didn't speak, but she nodded in agreement. Tai Lung, still training and unbothered, spoke, "He is not worthy to be called a father or anything, really. The only thing keeping him a Fire Lord is the honor and respect the high officers hold for the royal family and General Iroha's decision." Tai Li said, "Azula might be mean and scary sometimes, but she is still our friend. Is there no way to help?" Tai Lung replied, "Help her in what? She is just told to stay in her room. It is not really that much of a punishment, to be frank." Tai Li's voice rose, "She is not used to that. Only Zuko was treated like that in the past." The mention of Zuko caused Mai, who was listening silently, to narrow her eyes. After a moment of thought, she spoke. "I have an idea. Tai Lung can go to the royal palace to visit Azula and bring her out. If anyone objects, he can say he would like to have a private word with the Fire Lord." Tai Li stared at Mai, while Tai Lung paused and asked, "Why would I do that?" Mai gave an evil smirk. "Because Tai Li will be happy. And because I want to see the Fire Lord's face when he realizes his authority means nothing, his own daughter can leave her room against his will, and if he speaks out, only suffering will await him. And all of that happening in front of everyone in the palace. Tai Li and Tai Lung just stared at her. After a moment, Tai Li said, "Wow, I didn't know you could think like that. I thought being extra mean and hateful was Azula's thing." Then she smiled. "But I like the idea very much." She turned to Tai Lung and pleaded, "Please." Tai Lung didn't really care much about Azula or Ozai, and he certainly didn't mind having a quick trip to fetch Azula. But the way Mai spoke and the way Tai Li jumped behind the idea made him wonder what exactly these three girls had been taught in the Royal Fire Academy for Girls. Azula was sitting alone in her room, wearing red robes and letting her hair slide down her back loose. She had spoken to no one over the past few days. The servants would come in, bring her food, and leave as silently as they entered. She could clearly see the fear in their eyes. They didn't dare utter a sound. Azula found her punishment unfair. She was being punished for not being able to defeat the Avatar. Azula, who had witnessed the full power of the Avatar state, believed fighting the Avatar was impossible. Only by catching him off guard, or before he had begun learning bending, could they stand a chance. Her father's reaction, in her eyes, was completely unreasonable. Not once did Azula think her father could do better than what she had done. Her anger toward him had been accumulating over the past few days and now it had almost reached the boiling point. But her thoughts broke as she heard a knocking on her door. For a moment, she wondered if her punishment was over, since at this time no one was supposed to visit her. She said, "Enter." A flicker of surprise passed her eyes as she saw Tai Lung enter. Azula raised a brow and asked, "Did my father allow you to come here?" Tai Lung asked back, "Do you really think I would bother to ask for his permission?" He turned to look at the guards and said, "Leave us. If the Fire Lord has an issue with me, tell him I don't mind having a private word with him." The guards nodded and left. Azula watched the guards leave as Tai Lung closed the door. She said, "Father won't be happy about this. Why are you here?" Tai Lung replied, "Mai and Tai Li are worried for you and want me to help you leave this place." Azula answered, "This is my punishment. I can't leave unless I am allowed to." Tai Lung was silent for a moment, then tilted his head and said, "At first, I really couldn't figure out how your mind works. But as time went on, and seeing you now, I think I finally understand you." "What?" Azula asked in a confused tone. Tai Lung's voice was steady and deliberate as he looked at Azula. "You are no fool. You can see the faults of your father. He is cold, cruel, and unreasonable. The only reason he is still Fire Lord is because the high-ranking officers hold loyalty and respect toward the royal family, and they respect General Iroh way too much. If your uncle came back tomorrow and said if he wanted to be the Fire Lord, everyone would be on his side." Azula narrowed her eyes. "Your words are an admittance of treason." Tai Lung didn't mind her words and continued. "I was never loyal to your father. And to be frank, I wanted to get rid of him. But again, my suggestion was shot down out of respect for General Iroh, like I said." Azula narrowed her eyes, suspicion in her tone. "What are you trying to say?" "I want you to accept that your father is not perfect or a great man for that matter," Tai Lung replied. "He is not a model to follow and certainly not a person worth waiting for praise from. You are a prodigy, competitive and fierce, but you are holding yourself back. You've tied your self-worth and your destiny to your father's approval. You are dying for the moment he tells you he is proud of you, waiting for him to say he is grateful you are his daughter." Azula was silent for a long time, her fists tightening on her knees, before she finally muttered, "You don't understand anything about me." "I understand you more than you can imagine," Tai Lung said calmly. "An old wise master used to say, a person often meets his fate upon the path he took to avoid it. He was right, but I know now that it is not the whole truth. Just in the same manner, a person following blindly and stubbornly the path he believes leads to his destiny can end up walking away from his real destiny." Azula's face twisted in anger, her confusion breaking through. What has this to do with anything? Stop talking in riddles and say what you want. Tai Lung's eyes narrowed. You believe your father's approval and praise are the testament of your efforts, the eventual reward for all your hard work over the years. But in truth, it is not. You are straying away from the acknowledgement you truly deserve. He paused, letting his words sink in, before continuing. Look at yourself. You are the most talented and dedicated person I know. Your bending is already close to your father's level, and you are still young and growing while he is already at his prime. You are clearly smarter than him. I always thought it was a pity you were learning under him. If General Iroh was your teacher, I am sure you would have already surpassed your father by now. Azula's lips parted, surprise flickering in her eyes. You think highly of me? Since when? I always thought you looked down on me. Tai Lung tilted his head. What made you think that? I always thought Zuko could benefit from a fraction of your competitiveness and determination. Azula fell silent at that, her expression unreadable. Tai Lung pressed on. It is nice to have a father that treats you with love, to hear him say, I am proud of you. Trust me, I know that. But to throw away everything around you for a word from a father like Ozai, it is a waste. Frankly, you are waiting for the praise of someone lesser than you, even if he is your father. Azula's voice was low, uncertain for once. Then what do you think I should do? Accept who you are, believe in your own effort and don't wait for validation, Tai Lung answered firmly. Believe in yourself and accept that the word of others neither gives to you nor takes from you. Then walk your own path, the one you see as right. I am here on behalf of your two friends to bring you out. You can walk out with me now, and I guarantee your father won't be able to stop us. And if he annoys you after today, just let me know and I will straighten his behavior. Azula breathed in deeply, holding it as she thought carefully. Then, slowly, she smiled. Wait for me outside. I'm changing clothes. Tai Lung turned without a word and left the room. Azula stood from her seat, her eyes glinting with a dangerous fire. She had decided she would do as she pleased. She wanted to see how her father would react to this. You punish me and call me a failure because of the Avatar? Fine, she thought, lips curling into a smile. Let me see you oppose Tai Lung and uphold your authority and so-called honor. The flame curtain and torches danced in the Fire Lord's chamber, casting long shadows across the pillars and wooden floor. As always, Fire Lord Ozai sat hidden behind the fire curtain, his presence both commanding and suffocating. The chamber doors opened with a heavy groan, and a royal guard hurried in, dropping to one knee. His forehead nearly touched the floor as he spoke, his voice low and trembling. Fire Lord. Captain Lung has come to the royal palace. He headed straight to the princess's chambers. The fire curtain roared and exploded upward as Ozai's voice boomed with fury. Why did no one stop him? The soldier's shoulders shook as he pressed himself even lower. He hesitated, then forced the words out. We tried, my lord. But he told us to tell you, that if you have a problem, he can have a private word with you. Ozai froze. For a heartbeat, the fire itself seemed to still. Then his fists clenched, the veins in his arms burning with rage. This bastard, he hissed, his voice trembling with restrained violence. How dare he? The guard shivered, unable to lift his eyes from the floor. Ozai inhaled sharply, forcing his anger down, and his tone shifted to one of cold control. What about the princess? What did she do? I came to report immediately, Fire Lord, the soldier stammered. You fool. Ozai snarled. Go. Summon the princess, now. The guard scrambled to his feet and ran, each desperate step to leave the angry Fire Lord's chamber. Ozai adjusted his seating behind the fire, his breath heavy. He was no fool. He knew better than anyone, Tai Lung could not be controlled or stopped. But Azula, his daughter, she could still be ordered, still bent to his will. Moments later, the guard returned, his face pale and his body trembling. He fell into a bow, voice breaking as he spoke. "Fire Lord, the princess. The princess has left with Tai Lung." The flames surged violently, shaking the chamber. Ozai's voice thundered with outrage. "What does she think she's doing? Why didn't you stop her?" The guard's voice was barely a whisper. "We tried, my lord. But the princess said. She said to let you know, if you have a problem, go talk with Tai Lung." For the first time in years, the Fire Lord was unable to respond or think properly. Ozai stared into the fire, his thoughts stumbling over the words. Then he looked at the guard and asked to confirm what he heard. "Azula said that?" The guard nodded quickly, terrified, and repeated. "My lord. The princess told us that you can speak with Captain Lung if you have a problem," and then followed him. The fire dimmed slightly as Ozai sat in stunned silence. His chest rose and fell with slow, heavy breaths. He could not believe it. The daughter he had shaped since her childhood, the perfect tool, the one who obeyed without hesitation, who lived only for his approval, had ignored his will. Azula had rebelled. Ozai's jaw tightened as disbelief clouded his mind. How could this be? Azula walked outside the royal palace next to Tai Lung. "That was easier and less dramatic than I expected," she said. Tai Lung smirked faintly. "I didn't think for a moment your father would dare cause trouble. But I'm sure he's quite pissed." Azula let out a soft sigh. "I never thought a day would come where my father would treat me like Zuko. A day where I would go against his will and orders. You know." Her voice wavered slightly, though her composure held. "Now that I've experienced my father's unfairness and unreasonable punishment, maybe Zuko was not entirely in the wrong." Tai Lung turned his head, glancing at her sharply. "That's a quick change in opinion. But yes, your brother is a victim of your father's spite and stupidity. And make no mistake." His tone hardened. "You are no better than Zuko. Both of you are the victims of spite." "Not really," Azula replied. "I had days to rethink everything alone during my punishment. And don't act as if you know too much about our lives, even if you have some understanding." She paused, then allowed a small smile to curve her lips. "Still, thank you for coming." "There's no need," Tai Lung replied bluntly. "It was Mai's idea," and Tai Li jumped to agree. Azula's smile lingered, softening her usually sharp features. For the first time, she felt something she had never allowed herself before: relaxed, free. And for the first time, she felt genuine appreciation for having friends. She fully understood that Tai Lung came only because her two friends had convinced him. And her friends hadn't done it because she was the princess, or because she demanded it, they had done it because they cared for her. When Tai Lung and Azula reached the Lung estate, they went straight to the backyard, better known as Tai Lung's training ground. The moment Tai Li spotted Azula, her face lit up in a wide grin. "I knew Tai Lung would get you out of there," she said cheerfully. Mai's smile was smaller, more restrained, but sincere. "Did the Fire Lord make any fuss?" "Not a sound," Tai Lung replied flatly. Azula looked at her two friends, and a rare sense of gratefulness filled her chest. "Thank you, girls. You are the best friends anyone could ask for, really." Tai Li and Mai were both taken aback. Sincerity was not something Azula had ever shown so openly. The two exchanged a quick glance, then Tai Li said softly, "No need for thanks between us. We're friends." Mai nodded in agreement. For the first time, Azula took initiative and stepped forward and embraced them, both Tai Li and Mai. Tai Li squeaked with surprise, while Mai froze a moment before letting herself relax into it. Off to the side, Tai Lung allowed himself a small smile at the sight. After the warmth of the moment settled, Tai Lung turned toward Mai. "So what comes next? You got your friend out successfully." Mai shrugged. I don't know. I didn't think that far. Azula spoke to Tai Lung, her voice steady. You and Tai Li mentioned before that you wanted to travel around the world. If it's fine with you, I would like to join you. I will act just like any other soldier in your crew. Tai Li blinked in shock. Since when are you interested in travel? I'm not, Azula admitted. I just don't think I should stay here anymore. Maybe my destiny was never to stand at my father's side. I would like to see the world for myself, and then find my destiny. Tai Li's mouth fell open, stunned by the change in her friend. That's fine by me, Tai Lung said after a moment. But I must admit, you are moving way too fast. I didn't expect you to be so decisive. Azula fell silent for a breath, then spoke with unusual candor. When I was a child, my mother thought I was a monster. She always showed bias toward Zuko as if he was better than me. Her tone darkened. Father always praised me, favored me over Zuko. So I only wanted to prove him right, to prove my mother wrong. But now, seeing how my father acted, maybe my mother was right after all. Maybe I deserved her hatred and bias. Tai Lung blinked, then shook his head. Your mother didn't hate you or think you were a monster. She was worried about you. Worried how your father was twisting you into a cruel, vile person like him, all out of spite. Azula stared at him, her composure cracking. What? What do you know? Your mother used to come here with Zuko years ago, Tai Lung explained. She grew close with my mother. She told her how your father, out of spite, punished and mistreated Zuko, while praising you and encouraging you to hurt him. He did it all because he knew it would hurt your mother. He continued firmly, your mother was trying to teach you right from wrong, to shield you from Ozai's venom. But every day, she grew more worried about you and she had no way to stop it. As I told you before, you're a victim of spite, just like Zuko. And Ozai doesn't deserve to be called a father. Azula's face went pale. Her voice trembled as she muttered, my mother, loved me? She didn't think I was a monster. You can go ask my mother, Tai Lung said gently. She was the one who told me this. Azula's composure shattered. Without another word, she turned and ran into the Lung estate, desperate to find Tai's mother. Mai and Tai Li stood frozen, staring after her in shock. Tai, is that really true? Tai Li asked. He nodded in response. And you didn't think you should tell us earlier? Tai Li asked with clear agitation. I was traveling most of the time and Azula's family drama is low on the priority list of what I could care about. And let's be real, if I told her that before today, she would have looked the other way while saying I am sowing discord or something along these lines. Tai replied bluntly. Tai Li just stared at him and then nodded, his words, as blunt as they are, made sense. She turned to look at the state while wondering what Azula was feeling now. She truly felt sorry for Azula. On the other hand, Mai's mind drifted to Zuko. He was banished and treated so badly just to spite his mother. Even when Zuko's mom was dead, Ozai continued to torment him all the same. It showed how much of a monster Ozai really is. That night Azula sat alone in the courtyard as the pale light of the full moon illuminated the night. She stared at it with a hollow sadness. After her conversation with Tai's mother and the painful confirmation of everything she had been told, she felt unmoored. The woman she had believed hated her, who Azula had convinced herself regarded her as a monster, had in truth been full of worry and love. The father she thought had favored her had in reality used her as a blade to wound the person who truly loved her, her mother. Her memories looped back at her in a new, cruel light. Every harsh word, every stern lesson, and every proud accolade from Ozai was reinterpreted. Her mother's strictness, once evidence of favoritism and bias, now appeared as tough love, an attempt to steer a misguided child away from Ozai's influence. The realization gnawed at her. She had blamed her dead mother for the lies and illusions she had been fed. Her mother had not deserved it, and she had willingly become the tool her father wanted her to be. Tai Li's soft voice broke through the spiral of thought. Azula, are you okay? You've been sitting like this since afternoon. Azula turned and saw Tai Li standing a few steps away, eyes wide with worry. Even my nearby wore an expression of concern. Azula exhaled, a small, ragged sound. I have wronged my mother my whole life, she said quietly. Even after she was gone, I continued to blame her and think badly of her. Tai Li moved closer and sat at her side, wrapping her arms around Azula before the princess could stop her. It's not your fault, she murmured. You were too young to understand. From behind them Mai's voice, blunt and steady, added, it is your father's fault. All of this is his doing. Azula listened to the two friends' reassurances and felt a swell of conflicting emotions, guilt, relief, and a new, bitter clarity. I always wanted to prove myself to him, she admitted. I wanted his praise. I wanted to be better than Zuko. If you hadn't sent Tai Lung, I might have stayed his tool forever. Her hands curled into fists at her sides. A fierce heat flared in her. Anger, shame, and a hunger for recompense. I will storm the palace and demand an Agni Kai, she snapped, voice sharp with sudden resolve. I want him to pay. I will make him pay. Mai's voice, cool and practical as ever, cut in. You don't need to do that. Tai Li can ask Tai Lung to skin him if you want. Tai Lung despises your father, and if asked he will. No. Azula's answer was immediate. She shook her head hard enough that her hair stirred. I will do it myself. Tai Li opposed her decision. You can't, he's still your father. Azula's face hardened at the reminder. There was no hesitation when he burned Zuko, she said, the memory of Zuko's humiliation fueling her fury. If he can do that to his own son, what is wrong if his daughter did the same to him? Tai Li pressed, even so, it is still too dangerous. Your father is still one of the strongest benders in the world. Azula recalled Tai Lung's words, that she would eventually surpass her father, and then a sudden bright determination lit her eyes. I don't want to wait for years. Azula thought as she resolved herself. Where is Tai Lung? She asked. He went back to his room to meditate, Tai Li answered. Azula rose before either friend could reply. I need to talk to him. She turned and walked toward the house without waiting, steps quick and purposeful, leaving Tai Li and Mai exchanging anxious looks behind her. Azula was clearly up to something. Azula found Tai Lung's room quickly with the help of one of the Lung estate servants. She knocked once. When his voice said, enter, she stepped inside. Tai Lung sat in a meditative pose, eyes calm, already looking at her. She drew a deep breath. Please help me become stronger quickly. Help me train. Tai Lung observed her for a long, quiet moment and then spoke. You are angry, angrier than I have ever seen you. Why do you want to train? Is it because of your father? Azula answered without hesitation. Yes. I want to make him pay, and for that I must be stronger, a lot stronger than him. Tai Lung stared at her silently. The resemblance in temperament struck him. She lived for her father's approval, she had trained relentlessly, and now, struck by reality, anger and rage filled her. In that moment she reminded him of himself in his first life, driven toward destruction and revenge when he felt betrayed and everything he worked for crumbled. When one is angry, Tai Lung said slowly, they become blind to the consequences of their actions. A hasty move in a moment of fury can lead to a life of doubt and regret. I know, Azula replied. That is why I want you to help me train, so I don't make a mistake, so I can make Ozai pay. Tai Lung took note of how she spoke of her father, how she no longer framed him as father or Fire Lord like she used to. He knew Ozai did not deserve to be called anything, and yet Azula was his child. He answered, no matter how hurt you are, you shouldn't raise your hand against your father. Even if he deserves it, such an action will follow you for the rest of your life. He has to pay. Azula snapped. Tai Lung's voice remained calm. You can make him pay without whatever it is you are intending to do. Azula fell silent, staring at him. Tai Lung continued, your father craves control and dominance. Be better than him. Rise above him and make him watch your back, unable to stop you. Azula looked at him for a long moment, then finally asked, how? Tai Lung smiled. By believing in yourself and following your own path. If you agree to that, I am willing to teach you. Azula's eyes burned with determination. She nodded. Watching her, Tai Lung thought of his first life, of the darkness forged into his being, as Oogway had put it. She had a similar darkness inside her, so he made a private decision then. He didn't want to see Azula become a second him. The sea breeze was sharp that morning as Tai Lung's ship cut across the waves, leaving the Fire Nation behind. 2 days had passed since Azula left the palace, and now Tai Lung stood on deck with Ty Lee, Mai, and Azula by his side. I'm surprised you decided to come with us, Tai Lung said, glancing at Mai. You never struck me as the kind who likes to travel. Mai's expression was flat, her voice as dry as ever. Anything is better than being stuck with my family in Omashu. Tai Lung chuckled and nodded. Fair enough. On the other hand, Azula's golden eyes turned toward him. So what is the plan? Where are we going? Tai Lung shrugged with casual ease. We don't exactly plan our course. Usually, we just drift and see what we'll find. Azula stared at him, utterly speechless. Tai Lee laughed, bouncing on her heels. What about the island with only girl fighters? That sounded like a nice place. Tai Lung's memory stirred, Kyoshi Island. He had visited the place when he first started traveling. He gave a short nod. Then we go to Kyoshi Island first. Mai gave the faintest nod, not particularly caring about the destination, while Azula folded her arms, fixing Tai Lung with a steady gaze. Now that you've decided on the destination, when are we going to start my training? I'll order the soldiers to clear the deck, Tai Lung replied. Then we start. Azula nodded. She had never been more motivated in her life to grow stronger. Not long after, she stood before a strange contraption, a tall wooden post with arms sticking outward, each studded with sharp metal spikes. She frowned, puzzled, and asked, what is that? Tai Lung smiled faintly. This is the gauntlet of the wooden warrior. It's a rotating, steel-studded training post. Your task is to fight it without bending. He stepped closer and struck the post with a heavy punch. The contraption whirred into motion, the spiked arms swinging around to strike at him. With practiced ease, Tai Lung blocked and countered, each hit making the post spin faster and faster, the returning strikes coming harder and sharper. Then he abruptly stopped it and looked back at her. It's your turn. Let me warn you, it's going to hurt, a lot. Azula eyed the rotating post, a flicker of worry crossing her face. For an instant, she wondered if she had made a mistake asking to train under Tai Lung. But just as quickly, she buried the thought. He was the strongest for a reason. If this training had forged his strength, then she would endure it as well. She stepped forward. Tai Lung watched as she began her training, noting how the metal studs repeatedly struck her arms and sides, leaving scratches across her skin. But Azula didn't back down. Each time she was hit, she straightened, sharper, fiercer, pushing herself harder. In that stubborn refusal to retreat, Tai Lung found himself giving her his silent approval. He always thought of the Benders' training in this world as soft. Their training was too simple, too safe. As for this, it was Shifu's way, merciless, brutal, and unforgiving. At the side, Tai Lee bit her lip with worry while Mai stood with arms crossed, watching closely. Tai Lee finally asked, is it really okay to let her train like this from the start? She's getting hurt. Just scratches, Tai Lung replied calmly. She already has a foundation, and this will make her grow faster. Besides, if she isn't backing down, then you should just support her. Tai Lee and Mai exchanged a look, then nodded reluctantly. And so Azula's training began, the same merciless path that had once forged Tai Lung into what he was. Shifu-level training. Days later, the ship docked at the shores of Kyoshi Island. Tai Li was the first to hop off, her eyes full of curiosity as she looked around. Tai Lung and Mai followed behind her, and at the very end came Azula. She walked with a weary expression, her arms wrapped tightly in bandages. It was plain to see that Tai Lung's training had taken its toll on her. The rest of the ship's crew descended after them, but they had little time to take in the scenery before they were confronted by the Kyoshi warriors. Their fans at the ready, they stood in a disciplined formation. Tai Lung folded his arms, his eyes narrowing slightly. "They're still as vigilant as a few years ago," he commented. Meanwhile, the three girls observed the warriors with interest. The strange face paint and elaborate clothing caught their attention immediately. "Hi there," Tai Li chirped, waving enthusiastically. The Kyoshi warriors didn't respond. They simply stared in silence until their leader finally spoke. Her eyes were fixed on Tai Lung. "You are the Fire Avatar." Tai Lung smiled faintly. "That title reached you, huh?" "Well, I'm not the Avatar. The Avatar is back, and he's an air nomad." The leader nodded slowly, studying him. "I didn't expect to see you again." Tai Lung inclined his head toward Tai Li. "She heard of you, the island where only girls fight, and wanted to see you in person." Tai Li gave another energetic wave, smiling brightly. The leader's eyes swept over her carefully before she said, "You are welcome here. We still owe you for saving the island from the famine back then." Tai Lung acknowledged the words with only a slight nod. Tai Li blinked and turned toward him. "What famine? You didn't mention a famine." "It's no big deal," Tai Lung replied casually. "Just an oversized fish preventing the villagers from fishing around here." Tai Li frowned, unconvinced, and shifted her gaze toward the Kyoshi leader. Everything is no big deal to him. What really happened here? "Oh, and I'm Tai Li. Nice to meet you." The leader gave a small smile in return. "I am Suki. It is nice to meet you too. I'll tell you the story on our way back to the village." And so, the two groups began walking together toward the village, the warriors stepped steady and measured. Along the way, Suki began to recount the tale of Tai Lung's first arrival on Kyoshi Island and how he saved their island. The center of the village on Kyoshi Island was where the Kyoshi training hall stood. It was here that the young women of the island honed their skills, striving to become worthy of the Kyoshi name and, one day, to defend their home alongside their sisters. Now, however, the training hall welcomed a unique group of outsiders, Tai Lung and his companions. It was the first time the Kyoshi had ever allowed anyone else into their sacred hall, and it was only done at the request of Tai Li, who had long wanted to see these warriors in action. She had heard from Tai Lung that they specialized in hand-to-hand combat, and the thought thrilled her. For Tai Li, this was a rare opportunity. Other than Tai Lung, no one in her life specialized in pure unarmed combat. Finally, she could test herself against someone new. She was paired with a warrior named Riku, a girl a few years older than her and, according to Suki, one of the island's most skilled fighters. Suki stood at the side, her eyes sharp as she looked between the two combatants. The moment she gave the word to begin, Tai Li darted forward. Riku immediately raised her guard, expecting a punch or a kick, ready to counter. But Tai Li surprised her, grabbing her arm instead and pulling her in with unexpected strength. Before Riku could adjust, Tai Li unleashed a flurry of rapid blows to her side and back. The sheer speed overwhelmed her, and in seconds, Riku was knocked to the ground. Tai Li blinked, staring down at her, then quickly crouched beside her. "Are you okay?" "I'm so sorry if I hurt you." Groaning, Riku pushed herself up slowly. "You're faster than you look. And a lot stronger. How did you train to have this much strength?" Tai Li gave an apologetic smile. "I trained and sparred with Tai Lung often. No wonder you are so strong if you've been training with, Riku muttered, shaking her head. Suki stepped closer, her expression clearly impressed by what she saw. Tai Li, in hand-to-hand, I have no doubt you're the strongest person out there, besides Tai Lung. Tai Li's smile brightened. Thanks. From the side, Azula, who had been sitting between Tai Lung and Mai, suddenly stood. Her golden eyes locked on Suki. I want to spar as well, she declared. Then, with a challenging edge to her voice, she added, with you. Suki raised a brow at the tone, but before she could respond, Tai Lung's voice cut in. That's not the proper way to ask someone for a spar. Azula shot him a look that practically asked if he was serious. In her eyes, Tai Lung was the last person who should lecture anyone about respect and the proper way of speaking. And as if reading her thoughts, Tai Lung continued, they are my rules. And no fire bending. Azula let out a slow sigh, then turned back to Suki. This time her voice was calmer, steadier. I would appreciate it if you accepted sparring with me. The sudden change in tone caught Suki off guard, but before she could answer, Tai Li leaned in and whispered, Tai Lung agreed to train her if she followed his rules. Understanding flickered in Suki's eyes, followed by a look of quiet seriousness. If Tai Lung was training Azula, then she wasn't to be underestimated. Suki knew she was another strong warrior, just like Tai Li. The spar between Azula and Suki was nothing like the earlier match between Tai Li and Riku. Where Riku had been caught off guard and overwhelmed, Suki proved herself a far tougher opponent. Her movements were sharper, faster, and more precise. Azula, without her bending, relied on her combat skill and speed, but she was lacking in raw strength and speed compared to Tai Li. It made her a close match, though ultimately, she stood above Suki as the winner. Azula refused to stop there. She turned to Tai Li. I want to spar with you, she said, her voice even but edged with challenge. The two had never faced each other before like this, and Azula needed to know how she measured against her. Tai Li accepted with her usual cheerful smile. The fight that followed was fast and unrelenting. Azula managed to last far longer than Riku had, surprising even herself at times, but in the end, Tai Li's speed and strength and experience overcame her. With a swift flurry of strikes, Azula was left on the ground, breathing heavily, defeated. Through it all, Tai Lung observed silently from the sidelines. His eyes were fixed on Azula, studying every movement, every misstep, and every hint of potential she displayed. He took mental notes to address them later. The matches continued. Azula and Tai Li sparred a few more times, and others among the Kyoshi warriors joined in as well. By the time the sun began to sink, the girls were exhausted, their limbs heavy and aching. Tai Lung finally told them to rest for the night. At dawn, training began again. Tai Lung worked with Azula, his instructions were based on the sparring from the day before. Tai Li sat to the side, watching with open interest. The Kyoshi warriors, Suki most of all, gathered quietly to observe. For them, this was a rare chance to see how Tai Lung trained the girls who had bested them just the day before. What began as a morning routine soon turned into a frenzy of movement, as others joined in, eager to test themselves and to learn. By the time I emerged from her room, hours later, she was met with the sight of the island's warriors, Azula, and Tai Li, all dripping with sweat, exhausted but relentless. Mai blinked at the scene, baffled. She could understand Azula's obsession and Tai Li's cheerful energy, but for so many others to join with such dedication, it was very impressive in her eyes. Want to join us, Mai? Tai Li asked brightly, waving her over. Mai gave her a flat stare. I'll stick to throwing knives, thanks. The training frenzy continued for days, stretching into an entire week. Every morning began with drills, every evening ended with exhaustion. At last, Tai Lung decided it was time to leave Kyoshi Island and set their course for the South Pole. That night was their last on the island. As Tai Lung returned to the ship to meditate, the girls gathered for one final evening together. Suki, Tai Li, Mai, and Azula sat around a campfire, joined by several Kyoshi warriors they had grown close to over the week. Suki, with a surprised look on her face, said, "I didn't expect you to be the Fire Nation princess. No offense, but I didn't think a princess would be so strong, training like that and living far from her home." Azula gave a small smile. "None taken. Actually, it is expected of me to be a skilled fighter as a member of the royal family." From the side, Ruki commented, "I thought being a princess was a nice thing, but to think it is such a rough life." Azula let out a mirthless chuckle. "You all have no idea. Do you mind if I tell you a story?" Suki and the others leaned in with interest. Azula began to speak, her voice calm. She spoke briefly of her childhood, of her father's actions, and of how she believed her mother hated her for most of her life. When she finished, her eyes hardened as she said, "Now I am following Tai Lung to train so I can go back and defeat my father, to humiliate him." Tai Li's eyes widened. "But you said you would follow Tai Lung's rules, and that you won't raise your hand against your father." Azula replied, "No. He opposed the idea and warned me of the consequences, that's all." "But..." Tai Li began. Suki interrupted firmly, "Azula is right. Her father is an evil man, no, a beast, and he should be punished. I can understand Tai Lung's thoughts. Hurting your own parent is not easy or right, and that decision will follow you for the rest of your life." She took a breath, her expression hardening. "But the Fire Lord has crossed the line, and retribution is a must. Justice must be served." "Sure," Tai Li said quickly, "but not by Azula's hands, that's the point." Azula's eyes flashed. The one who was hurt most by him should take revenge. Mai, quiet until now, finally spoke. "Then that should be Zuko." Azula rolled her eyes. "Do you honestly think my brother can do it? And even if he somehow could, where is he now? We haven't heard of him or uncle since we were hunting the Avatar." Suki's eyes widened slightly. "You were hunting the Avatar?" Azula nodded, then told her the story. The fire crackled as she spoke, her words steady and unapologetic. The Kyoshi warriors exchanged troubled looks. The Avatar was someone they held deep respect for. After all, one of his reincarnations had been born on this very island. The thought that Azula had once pursued him sat uneasily with them. But as Azula recounted how the Avatar had escaped and later the shocking events in Ba Sing Se, the Kyoshi could only feel awe. Their respect for the Avatar gave way to Tai Lung's strength. Days later, Tai Lung's ship reached the southern frozen edge of the world. The land stretched out before them, a vast and endless sheet of white. Snow and ice shimmered beneath the pale sun, and in the far distance, small hills of untouched frost rose above the flat expanse. Tai Lung exhaled, his breath curling into the frigid air like smoke. Beside him, Tai Li hugged herself, shivering violently. "Why in the name of Agni are we here?" she asked through chattering teeth. "I haven't been to the South Pole before," Tai Lung replied calmly. Mai, who had joined them on the deck, pulled her cloak tighter. "There is nothing here but freezing cold. We should turn around and leave." Tai Lung gave a faint smile. "I plan to go deeper into this place." In the north, the moon and ocean spirits were hidden deep within the land. "I wonder if there's something similar here." And his eyes narrowed slightly, as though feeling something in the air. "I can sense chi flowing from deep within this land. It is weaker than the ocean and moon, but it is there." Mai raised a brow. "So you're here to find more overpowered fish?" Tai Lung chuckled, clearly amused by Mai. "Just curiosity. And this," he gestured toward the vast icy landscape, "is also the perfect place for Azula to train." At that, Azula, who had been silent at the side with her arms folded, turned toward him with interest. "What training?" she asked. "You've spent the past few weeks strengthening your body and your martial arts," Tai Lung answered. "Now it's time to focus on your firebending." And what better place to push your flames than one of the two coldest places on Earth? Here, and unlike the North, you won't have water tribe warriors interfering. A slow smile curved Azula's lips. Now that's nice to hear. Mai and Tai Li exchanged a glance, then looked back at the smiling princess and Tai Lung. Mai muttered, "I'll stay on the ship. This cold isn't for me." Tai Li gave an apologetic look. "Sorry, Tai, I don't like the cold either. I'll stay here with Mai." "That's fine," Tai Lung replied. His tone was calm, but there was a flicker of amusement in his eyes. "Azula and I will go deeper into the south. Depending on what we find, we may return quickly or we may stay for days." With that, Tai Lung and Azula stepped off the ship, their figures moving steadily across the icy ground. Behind them, Tai Li, Mai, and the rest of the crew retreated into the warmth of the ship, preparing to wait out whatever madness Tai Lung and Azula had decided to do. For decades, Pakku had carried the pride of being the Northern Water Tribe's greatest master. His bending was unmatched. His discipline and teaching raised the best water benders in the tribe. He had been the strict guardian of tradition, teaching only the young men of the tribe, dismissing women from the art of waterbending entirely. But Katara had broken that wall. Through her, he had seen what his stubborn pride had cost him, the love of his life, Kanna. After the siege of the north, as the city rebuilt from devastation, he found his thoughts drifting more and more southward. Kanna. She had left him long ago because of his rigid ways, and he had let her slip away. Now he knew she still lived in the southern tribe, far from the grandeur of their tribe. He had fought battles, trained warriors, and stood against the most powerful benders, and yet, the only victory that mattered now was to win her heart once more. The journey to the South Pole was long and grueling, but when at last he stood before Kanna, all the years fell away. His voice trembled as he apologized for his blindness, for the traditions he had clung to, and for the pain he had caused her. He told her he had never stopped loving her, not once, and that now he was ready to abandon every last tradition if it meant having her by his side again. When Kanna forgave him, when she agreed to marry him, Pakku felt younger than he had in decades. There would be no children, no family to raise, but none of that mattered. What mattered was that they had time left, and they would spend it together. For once, the stern master allowed himself joy, and it was the happiest season of his life. But as with all things in this world, it did not last. The three young warriors he had brought from the north came running into the village one morning, their faces pale. A Fire Nation ship had been sighted, anchored near the ice. 2 young soldiers had already disembarked and were marching straight toward the village. Pakku's heart sank. He knew the Fire Nation well and knew what they did to small, defenseless villages. He would not let that happen here, not while he still drew breath. He had promised Kanna to return swiftly after dealing with the Fire Nation. He was old, yes, but still one of the strongest waterbenders alive. 2 random soldiers would pose no threat to him. A single ship was nothing. With the absolute confidence of one of the best masters of his time, he stepped out of the village to intercept them before they could lay eyes on his people. The 2 figures grew closer. He wasted no time. With a sharp motion of his hand, the snow and ice obeyed, spiraling into a spear of glistening frost. He launched it toward them, not to kill, but as a warning, an announcement of his arrival. He would face them honorably, as a master should, not with a coward's ambush. And then, horror. The young man lifted his hand, and blue monstrous fire burst forth. The spear vanished into steam before it even touched him. Pakku's stomach turned cold. Blue fire. The fire monster of the North Siege. The one who had stood and even won against the Ocean Spirit and the Avatar Union. His composure held, but inwardly he cursed his fate. Why here? Why now? If he had known this monster was the one coming, he would have ordered an evacuation, not marched to his own doom. His mind, unbidden, drifted to Kanna. Her smile, her forgiveness, the warmth of her hand in his. He had only just regained her, only just tasted happiness again, and now it was to be taken from him. Haku glanced at the three young warriors by his side, all pale with fear as they also realized what this young man was. Haku couldn't help but whisper an apology in his heart. "Forgive me, Kanna. I will not return to you." Haku straightened his back, then took his battle stance, water swirling at his command. If he were to fall, he would fall as a master of waterbending, with the honor of a warrior, defending the woman he loved. The fire monster's face betrayed no emotion as he said, "You are afraid. You know me, don't you?" Haku replied, "I witnessed your battle in the North Pole." The monster's face shifted with realization. "You are from the northern tribe. I didn't know there was still communication between North and South." Haku tensed at that. He couldn't allow the monster to reach the village, no matter the cost. The monster raised a hand while smiling. "I am not here to attack you or the Southern Water Tribe. Let's keep our encounter peaceful." He paused for a moment, then added with a confident smile, "We both know how it will end if we fight." Haku couldn't believe his ears. The monster didn't want to fight. Was this a trick? But why would the monster need to deceive him? He was far too powerful to resort to tricks and lies. "We don't have the whole day. Turn around and leave while you still can," the monster said. Haku observed his two opponents carefully, then relaxed his stance. If the monster didn't want to spill blood, then it would be foolish to provoke him into doing so. He nodded lightly and said, "Stay away from the Southern Tribe, and we won't interfere with your business." Turning around, Haku addressed the three young warriors. "Let's leave." He wanted to return to the village as fast as possible. He couldn't fully rely on the monster's sense of honor. He would order the village to evacuate deeper into the south, away from the threat. As the group of four began retreating, they all froze in their tracks as the land around them darkened slightly. Haku looked up at the sky only to see the sun turning black. His eyes widened. It was the Black Sun. He knew exactly what it meant for the firebenders. Tai Lung stared up at the sky, his golden eyes narrowing as the world above shifted into shadow. The sun was swallowed by darkness, its blazing light replaced by a hollow ring of fire. For the first time in either of his lives, he was witnessing an eclipse. In his past life, he had only heard of such an event from tales. Now, at last, he saw it with his own eyes. Beside him, Azula leaned closer and whispered, her tone strangely hushed, "It is the Black Sun. I have read in the scrolls from the royal palace that we firebenders lose our ability to bend during the Black Sun." Tai Lung did not reply, just gave a nod. He could already feel it. His chi was being suppressed, pressed down as though the very world itself sought to seal it away. He frowned, wondering if this was the same thing the waterbenders had experienced during Zhao's reckless assault on the moon spirit. His thoughts were cut short when the old water tribe master turned to face him. Tai Lung's sharp gaze caught the change immediately, the hardened steel in the man's eyes. He knew immediately. "Did you change your mind?" Tai Lung asked calmly, though his voice carried a quiet warning. The old master's expression was grave. "I did not want to fight you. I knew death was the only outcome of facing you. But it seems the spirits do not want me to leave. The Black Sun is a sign. Fate has spoken. I know it is not an honorable thing to go back on my agreement or to attack someone when he is weakened." Tai Lung's eyes narrowed further. "This might be the only time where we can defeat you, when you are not able to bend fire," the old man admitted, his voice steady despite the conflict he felt in his heart. "You are the greatest threat to this world, after all." Tai Lung tilted his head, a faint smirk tugging at his mouth. "Am I now? Tell me, what did I do?" The master took his stance, water coiling around him like living serpents. "You are too strong," he said firmly. "And you stand at the Fire Nation's side. There is no need to talk anymore. I am Paku, waterbending master of the Northern Water Tribe. I am sorry it has come to this, but I see no other choice. However, I will ensure your companion can go back to the ship safely. Azula dropped into a stance without hesitation, and with a voice full of sarcasm, "What an honorable master," she said, eyes flashing. "I am so moved by your words that I almost feel like crying." Tai Lung raised a single hand toward her. "He is after me," he said quietly. "Stay out of it." Azula studied him for a heartbeat, then relaxed and took several steps back. She knew Tai Lung was a dangerous fighter even without bending, speed, strength and technique honed beyond what most could imagine. Tai Lung took a slow step forward, a smile touched his face. "Maybe it is indeed the work of spirits," he murmured. "Maybe this clash was destined to happen." Haku inhaled, then moved. His water coiled about him and froze into a spray of icicle spears that shot toward Tai Lung like a storm of frozen spears. Tai Lung made no show of fear. He took a stance and the next moment he hit the sides of the spears with incredible speed, causing them to rotate mid-air. Tai Lung followed by punching and kicking the backside, sending them back toward Haku 2 times faster than before. Haku's eyes widened, and he quickly created an ice wall to block the spears. The moment the spears hit the wall, cracks appeared due to the powerful impact. Haku was surprised by that, but he had no time as Tai Lung came from above the wall and down at Haku with an axe kick. The old master jumped back, barely dodging the kick. Tai Lung's foot continued downward, hitting the ice. In an instant, cracks spread everywhere. Haku, in that moment, was alarmed. If that kick had landed, he might have died on the spot. Without hesitation, the old master bent the ice below Tai Lung's foot, turning it into water. But Tai Lung was faster. He flipped back at the frozen wall. Haku controlled the water to follow Tai Lung, who, with a swift movement, jumped back again behind the ice wall. Haku melted the wall and looked at Tai Lung, who was back where he started, still smiling at the old master. Haku breathed slowly, but he couldn't hide the surprise in his eyes. Tai Lung was stronger and faster than he had imagined. For a moment, the old man thought he would lose if this fight was in the Earth Kingdom or anywhere where water is not abundant. Haku shook off these thoughts and decided to focus on the battle at hand. He formed ice spears again, but this time they were smaller than the first wave. He unleashed them with double the speed of the earlier attack. Tai Lung kept standing calmly as he watched the incoming bullet-like spears. Then he lifted his hand, and a wave of blue fire burst out, evaporating the ice in a hiss of steam. For a moment, Haku, Azula, and the 3 young warriors standing behind the master all widened their eyes in the same dumbstruck shock. Haku's voice came out strained, almost a whisper of disbelief. "Impossible. How are you still able to firebend? I wanted to show you I can still fight and even win without bending. In truth, I could have killed you with that kick if I wanted to." "You only dodged because I allowed you to," Tai Lung said. He stepped closer, smile deepening until it became a predator's grin. Haku took an involuntary step back. Panic flitted across the old man's face as realization settled in. Then, as if from nowhere, electricity crackled up around Tai Lung. With the precise 2-finger motion Tai Lung favored, lightning arced toward Haku. Haku slammed up a wall of ice to defend. The lightning struck, and the impact detonated against the wall, an explosion of shattered ice and steam. Haku scrambled another step back as he braced for what would come next. What came next was worse. Blue fire rained down from above. Haku raised a second ice shield overhead and fought to hold the onslaught, but when he tried to pull back, Tai Lung, who took flight earlier in the cover of the explosion, descended vertically like a meteor, knowing the old master could not evade in time. He struck hard. Haku was driven into the snow, crushed beneath the weight of the blow. Tai Lung stood over him, utterly calm. "This was your choice," Tai Lung said, voice level. "Now you face the consequences." Haku looked up through pain and snow, summoned what he could, and lashed out with a final desperate stab of ice toward Tai Lung. But Tai Lung was faster. His hands moved in a blur. Fire met the old master's arms and burned them. Haku screamed. Tai Lung walked past the defeated master without hesitation. He glanced at the three frozen, terrified water tribe warriors and let the contempt in his voice show. "I take it you don't dare to fight me," he said. "That makes it easier. Take this old man and get lost while I'm being nice. Move now." The three younglings ran like their lives depended on it. They carried Paku and ran away. Once the three young warriors hauled Paku away and vanished into the white horizon, Azula stepped closer, her eyes fixed on Tai Lung. "How are you still able to bend despite the black sun?" she asked, her voice carrying equal parts suspicion and curiosity. Tai Lung exhaled slowly, his breath misting in the cold air. "I told you before about my visit to the Eastern Air Temple," he began. "There, I met an old guru named Puthik. He taught me something new. It helped me to progress further as a person and a bender." Azula tilted her head slightly, waiting. "Chakras," Tai Lung explained. "Points in the body where chi flows. Each one is tied to a different part of our being: survival, pleasure, willpower, love, truth, insight, and cosmic energy. To open them, you must release what blocks them: fear, guilt, shame, grief, lies, illusions, and finally, earthly attachment. Only then can chi flow freely." He went on, detailing each chakra, its place in the body, and the steps Guru Puthik had shown him to open them. Azula listened, fascinated despite herself, her brow furrowed as if trying to process something that was unlike anything she had been taught. "When I unlocked them," Tai Lung continued, "I grew stronger, far stronger. My chi is no longer bound by the cycles of day, night, or even the black sun. I can sense the chi of other beings and feel the flow of energy across the world. That connection lets me stand here and ignore what weakens every other firebender. It is also thanks to that I learned how to heal." Azula's eyes widened. She had never heard anything like this before. That the airy philosophy of monks who preached balance and peace could yield such power felt like a contradiction. It is against the Fire Nation's way of thinking, where willpower and strong emotions are the true source of strength. Yet here Tai Lung was living proof of what peace and balance can bring benders. But Tai Lung did not linger on her wonder. He looked out at the endless ice instead. "Let's train here for a while longer," he said. "Then we'll go back to the ship. I don't want to frighten the people of the southern tribe. Most of them are women and children." Azula arched an eyebrow. "I never understood why you care about such things. And now you just spared that old man, the one who went back on his words and tried to kill you." Tai Lung's expression was calm. "I told you before, I don't wish to harm the innocent or attack without cause. And years ago, I killed tens of Earth Kingdom soldiers to save our trapped soldiers. I didn't think too much of it back then, but later I was confronted by the fact I am viewed as a dreadful monster wherever I go. They were right, of course, but it also gave me a sobering perspective that violence, even for saving others, can still be harmful to the innocents, for the families of those I killed. Some may say it is war and that's normal, but I know I could have done better. I chose to kill instead of to incapacitate." Tai Lung looked toward the direction where the water tribe members ran. "That old man fought me out of fear and what he thought was a duty, not true malice or hate, but he still reneged on our agreement and so he deserved to be punished accordingly. His arms will be marked in the future for his choice and that's it. If I had gone all the way and killed him, then I would not have changed at all. I'd be a fool repeating the mistakes of old. If I let myself fall into blind rage and violence, would dishonor myself and those who taught me again." For a moment, Azula stared at him, wondering if he was hiding some deeper secret. But then she shook her head, deciding it must be the air nomad's influence. Their whole culture was about peace and balance. It had clearly rubbed off on him way too much. The two of them remained in the frozen land, training with relentless focus for 3 days straight before finally turning back toward the ship. Upon their return, Tai Lung had declared his intent to stay longer at the South Pole. "I'm heading deeper into the south," Tai Lung declared. "There's a strange chi I've been sensing there. I intend to see what it is before leaving. He turned to Azula. "Keep training your firebending, as we did the past 3 days." Without waiting for a reply, he leapt from the deck and took flight into the horizon. Tai Li tilted her head, watching him disappear. "Is he always like this?" she asked Han, the ship's vice-captain. Han gave a short nod. "The captain often moves off to explore places difficult to reach. It isn't strange for him to vanish for days at a time." Tai Li frowned sympathetically. "That must be rough on you guys, waiting like that." Han shrugged, his tone calm. "We just remain in the same location for a while. It's not that bad. It's a little boring sometimes." Tai Li nodded in understanding, while Mai shifted her gaze toward Azula. "So, did anything interesting happen?" Azula's lips curved faintly. She nodded and began recounting their encounter with the old water master during the day of Black Sunday. The crew listened, their faces forming into surprise the more they heard. Far away from the ship, Tai Lung soared southward at full speed, his body cutting through the cold winds. An entire hour passed until the air thickened, and a blizzard rose like a wall before him. The storm forced him down. He landed in the deep snow, pulling his cloak tight, yet pressed forward undeterred. The blizzard clawed at him, but it was not enough to stop him. With relentless strides, he advanced deeper and deeper until, after hours of grueling progress, the storm suddenly ceased. Before him lay a place untouched by the raging winds, a frozen forest. A towering mountain of vibrant ice rose from the land, its surface shimmering with hues of blue. Encased within the ice were trees, their branches preserved in crystalline prisons. Tai Lung walked slowly toward the mountain, the chi he had been following pulsed strongly here, it was inside. He soon discovered a narrow path carved into the frozen forest. Moving through the icy walls, he marveled at the glimmering trees frozen beyond them. At last, he reached the center. The ground beneath him glowed with a calm, blue light. There, resting within the ice, was a massive glowing sphere. Tai Lung stared at it for long moments before unleashing a wave of fire. The flames melted the ice around it. Tai Lung was careful not to damage what lay within. Now free of its icy casing, the sphere shimmered with a soft, ethereal glow. Tai Lung narrowed his eyes. Its chi was unlike anything he had felt, gentle yet vast, as if it held the essence of countless beings. But among them, one stood above the rest, the Avatar. The chi was identical to the one he had felt when the Avatar entered the Avatar state. He reached out and touched it. His hand met not light, but solidity, pure and condensed chi. He frowned. Such a thing should not exist. After a pause, Tai Lung clenched his fist and drove a punch into it. The strike echoed across the cavern, but the light did not shatter. He unleashed fire next, yet still, the sphere remained untouched. His thoughts turned, sharp and calculating. If he could not break it, perhaps he could connect with it. Closing his eyes, Tai Lung let his chi flow outward. His body began to glow faintly, a soft golden aura pulsing from within. As his energy poured into the sphere, for the first time, it reacted. The sphere's blue glow flared brighter and brighter until the cavern was swallowed in blinding radiance. When the light faded, Tai Lung blinked and found himself standing elsewhere. A barren land stretched around him, spiky rocks jagged against a dark sky, streams of water trickling like veins through the cracked earth. The blue sphere stood silently beside him, unchanged, but in the distance another sphere glowed, this one radiant with a deep, pulsing purple light. And at the center of this desolate world stood an ancient, weathering tree, its roots buried deep in the rock. He knew where he stood before his senses even fully registered it. This place was the spirit world. The air tasted different here, and it was full of chi. It felt uncannily like the spirit realm from the life he'd left behind, familiar, and yet not quite the same. The glowing sphere at his side now made sense. It must be a gateway into this place. He moved toward the weathered tree at the center of the desolate land. The presence that radiated from it was unmistakable and strange at once, like the Avatar's chi in cadence but twisted, darker, and chaotic, as if it had never known light. It was the most alien sensation Tai Lung had ever encountered. Up close, the tree's trunk gaped with a cavernous wound. Inside that hollow something slithered in shadow, an entity marked with red, glowing patterns. The dark chi he'd felt was emanating from it in waves. Faint blue light pulsed around the hollow, like a barrier holding something at bay. Tai Lung's instincts told him this entity was not to be messed with. A voice rose from the hole, a human in the spirit world. I have not seen one in 10,000 years. It sounded amused and oddly delighted. Strange, the portals remain closed. How did you cross with your physical body? The glowing spheres, Tai Lung said without hesitation. They're the portals, right? Yes, the entity answered. Tai Lung kept his posture deliberate, his voice even. I don't know how I crossed, only that I did. Who are you? Why do you feel so much like the Avatar? The entity answered with cold curiosity. I am a spirit called Vatu. Who is the Avatar? Tai Lung frowned. I believe he is the one who imprisoned you. The chi blocking the trunk bears the same signature as the Avatar's. Silence thickened for a heartbeat, then Vatu's tone shifted, almost angry. Is that how Rava and her dear human pet go by in this era? Tai Lung's mind raced with the implications. It seems we are onto something. The Avatar is the bridge between the human and spirit worlds, the only one who can bend all four elements and be reborn. Vatu's voice softened, amused and bitter all at once. Yes. The Avatar is Rava and her human pet. What can you tell me about Rava? Tai Lung asked. I can tell you everything you want to know, Vatu offered, but in return, free me from this prison. Tai Lung looked at the pulsing blue barrier and at the dark thing within. He sensed the likeness to the Avatar but also the yawning absence of light. He replied, you are similar to the Avatar in nature and chi, but where the Avatar gives light, you give darkness. I am no fool to release you. Vatu's tone clipped, impassive. Then you will never have answers. That's fine, Tai Lung replied. I am sure someone else in the spirit realm will answer my questions. He started to turn away. Human, wait, Vatu called, urgency sharpening the voice. Let us make a deal. Free me, and I will lend you my power, just as Rava lent hers to Wan. Become a new Avatar. You will have the power to surpass and defeat the old one. Tai Lung paused, then looked back calmly. My name is Tai Lung. I do not need your power. He allowed a faint smile. I have already defeated the Avatar twice along with the spirit you call Rava. Vatu's disbelief flared. There is no way a human can defeat Rava. Believe what you want, Tai Lung said. The spirit changed tack, a narrower offer. Then a different bargain. I will tell you the origin of the Avatar and of Rava. In return, you will tell me about the human world and how you defeated Rava. Tai Lung raised an eyebrow at the sudden hunger for stories. Why the change to storytelling? Vatu's voice carried a new, weary loneliness. I have been here 10,000 years. You are the first to speak to me in that span. No spirits dare to approach this place. Tai Lung considered the dark trunk, the blue barrier, and the purple pulsing sphere in the distance. He nodded once, a curt, decisive motion. Fine. You have a deal. I am all ears. Tell me what you know. Vatu began telling him the story of the battle between balance and chaos, between himself and Rava, and how he was the one who first connected the spirit world to the human world. He spoke of how spirits roamed the human world once, how humans received the power to bend from the lion turtles, how the Avatar was born, and how the portals were eventually closed. Vatu revealed to Tai Lung the true story of the Avatar and the meaning of the so-called bridge between the two worlds. In return, Tai Lung told him about his battles with the Avatar. The trade of stories between Vatu and Tai Lung stretched on for hours. From that exchange, Tai Lung gained valuable information about the history of the world he now lived in and answers to questions that he had wondered about for a long time. It did not resolve everything he wanted to know, but it opened his eyes to a new path, possibilities, and directions he had never considered before. Vatu had spoken of an ancient spirit called Wanshi Tong and of the Spirit Library, a repository of knowledge that collected histories and secrets from both worlds. According to Vatu, the library held more information than any other place in existence, a place where one could learn truths lost to time. With that in mind, Tai Lung set his next destination, the Spirit Library. There was one immediate problem: Vatu did not, or could not, tell him exactly where the library was. So Tai Lung began to travel through the spirit world, moving from one strange location to the next and asking wandering spirits for directions. For the most part the spirits ignored him completely, as if they did not understand his words or simply had no interest in a human intruding in their realm. He pressed on anyway. Eventually he reached a forest where, while walking, he noticed a smiling star of light glowing inside a dark cave. Tai Lung paused and called to the star spirit. "Excuse me, can you tell me where I can find Wanshi Tong?" Silence answered him at first. Then, one by one, a few red eyes opened in the darkness. A giant, spider-like spirit emerged, many-legged, fanged, its tail coiling like a scorpion's, and from its head there was a horn-like extension with a smiling star at the tip. The spirit stepped into the light and fixed Tai Lung with a cold stare. "What is a human doing here?" it asked. Tai Lung repeated his question. "I am looking for Wanshi Tong. Can you point me the way?" The spirit's face twisted into fury. "How dare you disturb me and ask questions, human?" It opened a great maw and spewed a fluid web that shot toward Tai Lung. He dodged cleanly and said, calmly, "I apologize for the disturbance. If you know the way, tell me and I will leave you in peace." The spirit did not answer. Instead, it attacked again. After a series of evasions, Tai Lung's patience snapped. Fire curled around his hand and then leapt outward, searing the spirit and startling it into retreat. It stammered in shock, voice trembling, "How are you able to bend in the spirit world? You are here with your physical body?" Tai Lung did not reply. He closed the gap between him and the spirit, and then with one swift and brutal strike, a rising kick that slammed down upon the spirit's head and crushed it into the ground. The creature screamed from the impact, shrieking in pain and agony. Tai Lung spoke again, this time his voice was cold. "I tried to be nice. You chose violence. Tell me where I can find Wanshi Tong in the Spirit Library, or I will destroy you." Shuddering, the spirit spat out in a broken rush. Don't. I will show you the way, follow me." Satisfied, Tai Lung rose and began to follow the spirit deeper into the spirit world. After walking for another hour, the spider spirit finally led Tai Lung out of the forest and into a canyon. The place was steep and sinister, its walls jagged and harsh. The entire gorge was swallowed in a dense, rolling fog that stretched endlessly inside. The fog itself seemed alive, shifting and pulsing faintly, as if it were breathing. Tai Lung narrowed his eyes. "This is what you requested," the spider spirit said. Tai Lung's sharp gaze fell on the creature. His voice was calm but edged with suspicion. "Do you take me for a fool? Where are we?" The spider shook nervously. "Oh, of course not. This is the fog of lost souls. When you are lost in the spirit world and need to find someone or someplace, you go inside it. Walk through while thinking of what you seek, over and over again, and eventually, you will emerge where you want." Tai Lung's expression hardened. The canyon looked too sinister to be just a simple teleportation place. And yet, everything in the spirit world was strange, unfamiliar, and beyond reason. Seeing the doubt in Tai Lung's eyes, the spider added quickly, "This is no trick. I can go with you. If you stay close, we will both be pulled to the spirit library. But, it takes longer if two beings enter together." Tai Lung's silence was too scary to the spirit, but then to the spirit relief Tai Lung finally said, "Go first. I'll follow." The spider spirit scuttled down into the canyon, and Tai Lung stepped after it. Inside, the fog thickened until even their own shapes blurred. They pressed deeper and deeper into the fog. "Keep thinking about the spirit library," the spider hissed. "If your mind drifts, this will take longer." Time felt fractured inside the fog. Tai Lung walked steadily, focused, until suddenly his steps faltered. His vision grew hazy, and his knees dropped to the ground. His eyes stared blankly at the emptiness. The spider stopped, then circled him silently. After a pause, it let out a low snort. "Foolish human," it whispered with venom. "The fog of lost souls is a prison for your kind. It infects the mind, trapping you in your darkest memories and thoughts until you go mad. Enjoy your eternity." With that, it turned and vanished into the fog, leaving Tai Lung behind. Within the illusion, Tai Lung was no longer himself but the snow leopard of his first life. He was back in Chorgom prison, each arm shackled with massive stone restraints, his chi sealed, his body pressed down to his knees under the crushing weight of a great turtle shell burden. Before him stood Ugwe, shaking his head with a sad look. Beside him was Shifu, with his back turned on him, silent and cold. And behind them, more faces appeared, his parents, Tai Li, Mai, Azula, and his crew. All of them stared with disappointment and sorrow. "Why am I here?" Tai Lung demanded. His voice was full of confusion. "Why are you looking at me like this? What is going on?" Ugwe's voice was calm but stern. "You have a darkness inside you." Shifu, still refusing to look at him, spoke next. "You will remain imprisoned for the rest of your life." Then his father's turn came next. "You brought us endless shame." The words sank into Tai Lung, those words felt heavier than the rocks and turtle shell holding him. He lowered his head. His mind churned, racked with guilt and the memories of all the harm he had caused. The weight of shame pressed harder, and anger began to boil beneath it. His head snapped up, rage flashing in his eyes. "I don't know what is going on here. But once I am free, whoever caused this will pay, and that spider spirit will suffer for tricking me," Tai Lung said as his eyes darted around. Ugwe sighed and said, "Decades had passed and anger still commands your actions." Tai Lung froze. He remembered. He remembered the ruin his wrath had brought him once before. Slowly, Tai Lung steadied his breath. He closed his eyes, and as calm spread through him, his body began to glow with a faint golden light. When he opened his eyes again, they were calm and resolute. "I have already understood and accepted my mistakes," he said firmly. "I will not repeat them. This must be an illusion. Even so, I will not allow it to control me." The golden aura around him flared brighter. He forced himself upright, the turtle shell burden and rocks straining to drag him down again, but it was not enough to stop him. He pressed his shackled arms together. Blue fire erupted between them with explosive force, and in one surge he unleashed it outward, tearing through the prison and burning the illusion away. The illusion shattered. Tai Lung gasped as he returned to the canyon. The fog had vanished completely. Around him stood hundreds of humans, motionless, their eyes glassy, all staring into the void. Trapped souls who would never escape this place. The spider spirit had tricked him. This place was no guidance to lost souls. It was a prison meant to trap human souls forever. He knew that now. Tai Lung glanced back at the canyon's edge where he had come from, then made up his mind, he would find that wretched spider spirit and give him a piece of his mind. The spider spirit had just returned to its cave, sitting into the silence it so dearly cherished. Peace wrapped around it, and already it began to drift back into slumber. Barely minutes later, its eyes snapped open wide as a thunderous explosion shook the cave. The first thing it noticed was the absence of its roof, where once there had been rocks, now only open sky loomed above, revealing the shifting expanse of the spirit world. The spider blinked in confusion. Then its many eyes focused on the figure standing in the mouth of the cave, his body crackling with lightning. For a moment, the spirit could not comprehend. Wasn't this the human it had trapped in the fog of lost souls? How, in the name of the Mother of Faces, had he come back here? Tai Lung stood silently, giving the spirit time to recognize the gravity of the moment. Only then did he speak. I asked you for direction, and you tried to kill me. I did not harm you. I only asked you to guide me. But you chose to trap me in that cursed fog. Tell me, how should I punish you? The spider's crimson eyes widened. It stammered, you misunderstand, Really? Tai Lung interrupted, his voice cold, trying to lie again. Let me give you a choice. Do you prefer death by fire, or by lightning? His eyes narrowed dangerously, a blue flame erupting in one hand, while sparks danced in the other. The spider trembled, its legs shaking. I am so sorry. I tricked you, yes, but I won't ever do it again. Please, spare me. I will show you the way this time, truly. Tai Lung's gaze did not soften. Why should I trust you again? Desperate, the spider spoke quickly. Because I can help you right now. The spirit world is not like the human world. Here, emotions and dreams shape your surroundings. If you desire to move fast, to leave this place, the world itself will help you. And as you go, you will meet other spirits, some who know where to go, and they can guide you further. Tai Lung tilted his head, suspicious but intrigued. So I need the desire to move, not to find. And as I continue, spirits may come to guide me? The spider nodded furiously. Yes. Yes, exactly. Not all spirits can help, I cannot, but others can. As you move around, you are bound to find someone who can help you. Very well, Tai Lung said at last, his tone sharp. I will try this. But hear me, spider, if I discover you lied to me again, I will find you, no matter where you hide in this world. With that, he turned and left. The spider dared not move. It only watched the scary human disappear into the trees, whispering a silent prayer to the Mother of Faces that the human would succeed and never return. Tai Lung walked through the forest in silence, replaying the spirit's words. He thought of moving faster, crossing the forest in a single step. The more he focused on the desire, the stranger the sensation became. With each step, the ground seemed to fold beneath him, his stride stretching for meters at a time as though he were teleporting. And before he realized it, he stood at the forest's edge. Ahead, jagged mountains pierced the horizon in the distance. Tai Lung looked back at the forest, marveling at what he had just experienced. Even if he wanted to describe it to another, he doubted anyone would ever understand the strange, impossible sensation of it. After his moment of reverie, Tai Lung's eyes moved back toward the mountains, narrowing as he wondered where to go from here. The land before him stretched far, but not a single spirit could be seen. After a moment of thought, he decided to continue moving forward. If what the spider had said was true, he was bound to come across more spirits eventually. This time, Tai Lung chose to take to the skies. He pushed his arms back and leapt into the air, his fire propelling him forward. From above, he could better view the land and perhaps catch sight of something useful. At the same time, he focused his thoughts again, calling upon that strange sensation he had experienced earlier. The next moment, his body surged forward. The world blurred beneath him as he flew at alarming speed, dozens of times faster than his usual flight. The wind howled past him, and yet he felt weightless, carried by thought as much as fire and chi. As he moved through the air, something caught his eye, a golden shape gliding across the sky ahead. Tai Lung slowed, his eyes widening. It was a winged eastern golden dragon, its long serpentine body weaving gracefully among the clouds. For a moment, Tai Lung simply hovered in awe, memories from his first life welling within him. Once, he had dreamed of becoming the dragon warrior, a warrior named after a dragon like this one. He remained silent, lost in the sight. The dragon, however, noticed him. With a thunderous beat of its wings, it turned, its golden scales glinting in the light. Tai Lung stayed in place, watching as the majestic spirit approached him. The dragon began circling, spinning around him in wide arcs. Tai Lung raised his voice, steady and respectful. "Do you know where I can find the spirit library, or Wan Shi Tong?" The dragon released a powerful roar, the sound echoing across the skies. It was not words, but Tai Lung understood it was a yes. He hesitated for a moment, then asked, "Can you show me the way?" The dragon roared again. This time, it stopped its circling and hovered in front of him, lowering its body as if beckoning him to climb on its back. Tai Lung did not hesitate. He leapt forward, landing on the dragon's back, sitting on golden scales. The spirit wasted no time, soaring across the vast lands of the spirit world with breathtaking speed. Eventually, the horizon shifted, and an enormous structure came into view. Tai Lung's eyes widened. The building was vast, towering higher and stretching farther than any he had seen in both of his lives. The dragon descended smoothly, landing near the colossal entrance. Tai Lung dismounted and bowed respectfully. "I thank you for your guidance." The dragon lowered its head, releasing a softer, gentler roar, then took off into the skies, vanishing into the distance. Tai Lung watched it go before turning to the building. With steady steps, he walked inside. The sight that greeted him stole his breath. Endless shelves stretched into the distance, towering high above, filled with books and scrolls, hundreds of thousands, perhaps millions. The Great Spirit Library. Tai Lung walked slowly, his eyes tracing the endless rows, taking in the sheer number of books and scrolls that filled this place. He wandered deeper, and then a sound reached him, a voice, speaking aloud. He lifted his gaze upward to where the sound was coming from. High above him, one of the bridges connecting the upper floor at the center of the library, someone was there talking or reading. Tai Lung immediately took flight toward the upper bridge, and upon landing on it, he was met with a lone man sitting, reading a scroll with visible excitement, completely unaware of Tai Lung's presence. Tai Lung said, "Hello there. You are a human. What are you doing here?" The man jumped in fright, nearly dropping his scroll. "Ah. Where did you come from?" His eyes darted to Tai Lung's uniform. "Wait, you're a soldier of the Fire Nation?" Tai Lung nodded. "Yes. And from your clothing, you are from the Earth Kingdom. But how come you are here?" The man straightened nervously, still clutching the scroll. "I am Professor Zhe, head of the anthropology department at Ba Sing Se University. Or I was. By now, I imagine they believe me missing or dead." Tai Lung gave a small nod. "I am Tai Lung, captain of the Fire Nation." Zhe's eyes widened. "The Fire Avatar?" Tai Lung chuckled softly. "The one and only. I'm curious, how did you arrive here?" The professor replied, "I entered the library when it was still in the human world. When Wan Shi Tong drew it back into the spirit world, I refused to leave. And so, I remained." He looked at Tai Lung curiously. "And you? How did you get here?" Before Tai Lung could answer, a shadow blotted the bridge. A black giant owl descended, talons folding as it perched with a soft thud. Its eyes, two circles of liquid night, fixed on Tai Lung. "Yes, human," the owl spoke, voice like pages turning. "How did you come here with your physical body?"
And that concludes this episode. If you enjoyed it, I'd seriously love it if you guys could leave a like on the video, as it genuinely helps out so much, and it keeps me going, plus it takes only 1 second. That said, have a wonderful day. See you in the next one.